Seoul taught me one simple truth. Powerful men don't ask permission. They take what they want and leave destruction behind. I spent 3 years cleaning hotel suites for Korea's elite, perfecting the art of invisibility, counting down 30 days until my plane carried me back to America where I belonged. Then I opened the wrong door. Standing inside Suite 1809 was Kang Jun-seo, the man who owned half of Seoul's underground empire, whose name made grown men flinch, whose reputation was built on blood and silence. Our eyes met for 3 seconds. That's all it took. The most feared mafia boss in Korea decided he wanted me. And when a man like that stops feeling nothing and starts feeling everything, running becomes impossible. But I'm Nia Bennett, and I don't break easily. So bring it on, Seoul. Let's see who survives this collision. If you're watching from another city, drop a comment below and tell me where you're from. I want to see how far this story travels. Hit that like button, and let's dive in. Oh, the rain hammered Seoul like punishment. Nia Bennett stood outside the Orion Crown Hotel's staff entrance at 10:47 p.m., soaking wet, furious, and 30 seconds away from walking off this job permanently. Her supervisor, Mrs. Choi, had just assigned her a double shift, again, knowing damn well Nia worked yesterday's graveyard rotation without sleep. But complaining meant risking her work visa, and 29 days before her flight home wasn't the time to gamble. She pushed through the service door, water dripping from her black hair onto the marble floor. The hotel lobby stretched before her like a cathedral of wealth, gold fixtures, crystal chandeliers, and the kind of silence only money could buy. Tourists and businessmen drifted past, insulated from the storm outside by thick walls and thicker wallets. Nia grabbed her cleaning cart from the storage room and checked the tablet. Suite 1809, VIP floor, of course. The elite guests always waited until midnight to trash their rooms, like making her life harder was recreational sport. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus Reed, the only person in Seoul who felt like home. Marcus, you still alive? Haven't heard from you in 2 days. Nia, barely, double shift. Kill me now. Marcus, coffee tomorrow? My treat. You look like death. Nia, deal if I survive tonight. She pocketed the phone and pushed the cart toward the executive elevators. A security guard nodded at her, one of the few who bothered learning her name. Most staff treated her like furniture that occasionally moved. The elevator climbed silently. 18th floor, VIP suites. This high up, the guests weren't just wealthy. They were dangerous. Politicians hiding mistresses. CEOs laundering money. Criminals pretending to be legitimate businessmen. Nia had learned to recognize them by their silence. Real power didn't need to announce itself. The hallway was empty when the doors opened. Thick carpet swallowed her footsteps. Suite 1809 sat at the end of the corridor, its double doors imposing and dark. She checked the tablet again. Guest checked out 2 hours ago. Room ready for cleaning. Standard procedure. She knocked twice. No answer. Knocked again. Silence. Nia swiped her master key and pushed the door open. The suite was dark except for the glow of Seoul's skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. Rain streaked the glass like tears. And standing in the center of the living room, perfectly still, was a man who made her breath catch in her throat. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than her yearly salary. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from stone. Sharp jawline, high cheekbones, and eyes so cold they burned. He held a glass of whiskey loosely in one hand, watching her like a predator deciding whether to attack or wait. Nia's heart kicked against her ribs. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, stepping back. "The system said you checked out." "I didn't." His voice was quiet, controlled, and terrifying in its calmness. Korean accent underneath perfect English. The kind of voice that didn't need to rise to make grown men obey. "My mistake," Nia said, keeping her tone professional. "I'll come back later." "Stay." It wasn't a request. Something primal in Nia's gut screamed danger, but walking out now meant showing fear, and fear made powerful men hungry. So she straightened her spine and met his gaze directly. "I can't clean while you're here. Hotel policy." "I own the hotel." 4 words, delivered flat. True. Nia's mind raced. She'd heard rumors about the ownership change 6 months ago. Some Seoul conglomerate buying controlling shares through offshore accounts. but nobody talked about who actually controlled the money. Now she knew. This man wasn't a guest. He was the landlord, and she'd just walked into his domain like it belonged to her. "Then I apologize for the intrusion," Naya said carefully. "If you need anything, call the concierge." She turned toward the door. "What's your name?" Nia stopped. Every instinct told her to lie. Give him a fake name. Disappear into the staffing database like smoke. But lying to a man who owned the building seemed spectacularly stupid. "Nia Bennett. American." "Yes." "How long have you worked here?" 3 years. "And you leave in—" He knew. Somehow this stranger knew her resignation was filed, her departure date locked in. 29 days, Nia admitted. Silence stretched between them. Rain drummed against the windows. Seoul glittered below like a circuit board of light and shadow. "You don't belong in Seoul," he said finally. It wasn't an insult, just observation, but it hit harder than any slur she'd endured from drunk guests or racist supervisors. "No," Nia agreed quietly. "I don't." "Then why stay 3 years?" Because running from Chicago meant having somewhere to run to. Because Seoul was far enough from her past that the ghost couldn't follow. Because working herself into exhaustion was easier than sitting still long enough to think. "Work visa," she said instead. Needed the minimum commitment. He took a slow sip of whiskey, studying her like she was a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. "You're not afraid of me." Naya almost laughed. Fear was the only thing keeping her upright. "Should I be? Most people are. I clean hotel rooms for a living. I've seen worse." That wasn't true. She'd never seen worse. This man radiated danger like heat from asphalt, invisible but unmistakable. Everything about him screamed violence, held in check by sheer willpower. But Nia had learned years ago that showing weakness to powerful men was suicide. His expression shifted slightly. Not quite a smile. Something darker. "What's your name?" Nia asked, knowing she'd regret it. "Kang Jun-seo." The name dropped between them like a blade. Even Nia, who avoided Korean news, ignored local gossip, and kept her head down religiously, had heard whispers about Kang Jun-seo, the ghost who controlled Seoul's underground, the man politicians feared and criminals obeyed. 3 years ago, a rival gang tried eliminating him. 15 bodies turned up in the Han River. Kang walked away without a scratch, and now he stood 3 meters away, watching her with the kind of focus that made her skin prickle. "I should go," Nia said. "You're not what I expected." "Expected from what?" Junseo set his glass down on the marble counter with deliberate precision. "I've been watching you." Ice flooded Nia's veins. "Excuse me?" "For 3 weeks. Security footage, staff reports. The way you move through this hotel like you're trying to disappear. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening." "That's—" Nia started. "Fascinating," Junseo finished. "You work harder than anyone else. Never complain, never socialize, just survive. Like you're counting down to something better." "I am," Nia said, anger cutting through fear. "And in 29 days, I'm gone." "What if I offered you something better?" "I don't want anything from you. You don't even know what I'm offering. Doesn't matter. Whatever it is comes with strings attached." For the first time, genuine surprise crossed his face. "You assume I want something? Men like you always do." Silence. Heavy and dangerous. "Men like me," Junseo repeated softly. "Powerful, rich, used to getting what you want." "And you think you know what I want?" Nia met his gaze squarely, refusing to blink first. "No, but I know I'm not giving it to you." Something flickered in his eyes. Not anger. Something worse. Interest. "You don't like powerful men," he observed. "I don't trust them." Smart. He moved closer. Not threatening, just closing distance. Nia forced herself to stand still, even as her pulse hammered. "I could make your last 29 days very comfortable," Junseo said quietly, "or very difficult." "Is that a threat?" "It's an observation. You've worked 3 years in a hotel I now control. Your comfort depends entirely on my decisions." "Then I guess I'm screwed either way." The corner of his mouth lifted. Almost a smile. "You really aren't afraid." "I'm terrified," Naya admitted. but I stopped letting fear run my life a long time ago. Junso studied her for a long moment. Then he stepped back, creating space between them. Tomorrow morning, my office, 9th floor. Why? Because I'm offering you a position. I have a position. Housekeeping. I'm offering you a better one. I don't want it. You haven't heard the offer yet. Don't need to. The answer's no. Frustration cracked through his controlled expression. You're rejecting an opportunity you know nothing about? Yes? Why? Because accepting anything from a man like Kang Jun-seo meant owing him, and debt to dangerous men always came due eventually. I'm leaving Seoul, Nia said. Whatever you're offering doesn't fit my timeline. Then consider it a temporary arrangement. No. Nia, my answer is no. She turned and walked toward the door, heart slamming against her ribs, waiting for him to stop her, to grab her arm, to remind her that men with power didn't accept rejection gracefully. But Jun-seo just watched her leave. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Nia made it halfway down the hall before her knees buckled. She grabbed the wall for support, breathing hard, adrenaline crashing through her system like a drug. What the hell just happened? The most dangerous man in Seoul had just offered her something, and she'd refused, without hesitation, without even pretending to consider it, either incredibly brave or catastrophically stupid, probably both. Her phone buzzed. Marcus. You okay? That was a long silence. Nia stared at the message, trying to compose a response that didn't sound insane. Nia. Define okay? Marcus. Uh-oh. What happened? Nia. Tell you tomorrow. Need coffee. Lots of coffee. She pocketed the phone and pushed her cart toward the service elevator, trying to ignore the feeling that her entire life had just tilted off its axis. 29 days, that's all she needed. 4 more weeks of keeping her head down, finishing her shifts, and getting the hell out of Korea before... The elevator doors opened. Kang Jun-seo stood inside. Nia froze. He smiled, cold, predatory. Going down? The next morning arrived too quickly. Nia dragged herself to the staff cafeteria at 6 a.m., surviving on 3 hours of sleep and pure spite. Marcus was already there, 2 cups of coffee waiting. You look like death, he announced cheerfully. Feel like it too. Marcus Reed was everything Nia needed in Seoul. Light, easy, uncomplicated. An English teacher from California who'd been living in Korea for 5 years. He understood the particular exhaustion of being foreign in a country that tolerated you but never quite accepted you. They'd met at an expat meetup 2 years ago. Nia went hoping to find job connections. Instead, she found a friend who didn't ask invasive questions about her past. So, Marcus said, sliding coffee across the table. What happened last night? Nia wrapped her hands around the cup, letting warmth seep into her fingers. I met the owner. Of the hotel? Yeah. And? And he's terrifying. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Terrifying how? Like bad boss terrifying or serial killer terrifying? Mafia boss terrifying. Oh shit. Marcus leaned back. You met Kang Jun-seo? You know him. Everyone knows about him. Well, everyone knows the rumors. Nobody actually knows him. Marcus studied her face. What happened? Nia told him. The unexpected encounter, the job offer, her refusal. Marcus whistled low. You rejected Kang Jun-seo. Yes. The Kang Jun-seo. How many are there? Nia, that man doesn't hear no from anyone. Well, he heard it from me. And you're still alive? Apparently. Marcus shook his head, half impressed, half horrified. You're either the bravest person I know or the dumbest. Definitely the dumbest. So what are you going to do? Nothing. I'm leaving in 4 weeks. Just need to stay out of his way until then. You really think he'll let you? The question hung between them. Nia's phone buzzed. Unknown number. Unknown. 9th floor. My office. 10 a.m. Her stomach dropped. Shit, she whispered. What? Nia showed him the message. Marcus grimaced. Yeah, you're not staying out of his way. I'm not going. Nia, I said no yesterday. I'm saying no today. He can't force me. Marcus gave her a look that said exactly how naive that sounded. This is Seoul. He can do whatever he wants. Not to me. Why are you so stubborn about this? Because accepting help from powerful men always ended the same way. They gave you what you needed, then expected everything in return. Body, soul, freedom. Nia had learned that lesson young. She wasn't repeating it. I just am, she said. Marcus sighed. Okay, your funeral, but promise me you'll text if anything happens. Promise. They finished their coffee in comfortable silence. At 7 a.m., Nia headed to the locker room to change into her uniform. Mrs. Choi was waiting. Miss Bennett? Ma'am? You've been reassigned. Nia's heart sank. Reassigned where? VIP services. Effective immediately. I work housekeeping. Not anymore. Report to the 9th floor at 10 a.m. I can't. It's not optional. Orders from ownership. Mrs. Choi walked away, leaving Nia standing alone in the locker room, rage and fear battling for dominance. He'd moved her, without permission, without consultation, just snapped his fingers and rearranged her life like she was a chess piece. Nia grabbed her phone. Nia, you can't do this. Unknown. I already did. 10 a.m. Nia, I'll quit. Unknown. Then quit. But you'll still need a reference for your next visa application. And I decide what that reference says. The threat landed like a punch. Bastard. He'd boxed her in perfectly. Refuse and risk her immigration status. Accept and surrender control. Nia wanted to scream. Instead, she changed into her uniform and took the elevator to the 9th floor, each second feeling like walking toward execution. The 9th floor was different from the rest of the hotel. Quieter. No tourists, no casual guests. Just dark wood paneling, muted lighting, and security guards stationed at every corner. A receptionist looked up as Nia approached. Nia Bennett? Yes? This way. They walked down a long corridor. Paintings lined the walls, expensive, abstract, cold. At the end, double doors opened into an office that could have been transported from a crime thriller. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, and behind a massive desk, Kang Jun-seo. He looked different in daylight, less shadowy, more solid, still terrifying. Sit, he said. I prefer standing. Sit. Nia sat, mostly because her legs felt unsteady. Jun-seo closed the folder in front of him and studied her with that same unnerving focus. You're angry. You threatened my visa. I stated facts. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. If I wanted to threaten you, you'd know. Nia clenched her jaw, fighting the urge to walk out. What do you want from me? Your time. For what? I need a personal attendant. Someone who understands American business culture, speaks English fluently, and can navigate international clients. I clean hotel rooms. You have a degree in international relations from Northwestern. Nia's blood went cold. How do you know that? I make it my business to know things. You investigated me? Of course. That's thorough, Jun-seo finished. You graduated summa cum laude, worked for a consulting firm in Chicago for 2 years, then disappeared from the United States entirely and resurfaced in Seoul working housekeeping. He leaned forward. Why? That's none of your business. You're running from something. Everyone's running from something. Not like this. Not burning a promising career to scrub toilets in a foreign country. Nia stood abruptly. I'm not doing this. Find someone else for your attendant position. There is no one else. I want you. Why? Because you're not intimidated by me. I'm terrified of you. But you don't let it control you. That's rare. Congratulations, still not interested. Jun-seo stood as well, moving around the desk with predatory grace. Name your price. There isn't one. Everyone has a price. Not me. Triple your current salary. Private accommodations. Full benefits. No. Why? Because working for him meant being close to him. And something about Kang Jun-seo made Nia's carefully constructed walls feel dangerously thin. I don't trust you, she said simply. For a moment, something almost like respect crossed his face. Smart woman. Then let me leave. I can't do that. Why not? Junseo stepped closer, not touching. Just close enough that Nia could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive. Because, he said quietly, for 3 years I've felt nothing. No anger, no desire, no interest in anything beyond maintaining control. He paused. Then you walked into my suite last night, and for the first time since I can remember I felt something. Nia's breath caught. That's not my problem. It is now. I'm leaving Seoul in 4 weeks. Then give me 4 weeks. To do what? Figure out why you matter. The honesty in his voice was worse than any threat, because it wasn't manipulation. It was truth, raw and unfiltered, and that terrified her more than anything. I can't, Nia whispered. Why? Because men like you don't just let people leave when you're done with them. Junseo held her gaze. I'm not asking you to stay forever, just stay long enough for me to understand what's happening. Nothing's happening. Liar. He was right. Something was happening. Some chemical reaction between fear and fascination that Nia didn't understand and couldn't control. 4 weeks, Junseo repeated. Personal attendant. Professional arrangement. Then you leave Seoul and I never contact you again. You promise? I promise. It was a terrible idea. Possibly the worst decision she'd ever make. But refusing meant risking her visa, her references, and her ability to leave Korea cleanly. Fine, Nia said. 4 weeks. Then I'm gone. Junseo smiled, and Nia realized she'd just made a deal with the devil. The job started immediately. Junseo's assistant, a severe woman named Park Min-ji, handed Nia a tablet, a phone, and a list of responsibilities that made her head spin. You'll attend all meetings, Min-ji said crisply. Take notes. Coordinate schedules. Handle international correspondence. The boss needs someone who understands American business protocol. I haven't worked corporate in 3 years. Then remember fast. The first meeting happened that afternoon. A group of Japanese investors discussing property acquisitions in Gangnam. Nia sat beside Junseo, taking notes while trying to ignore the way his presence filled the room like gravity. He spoke Japanese fluently, negotiated terms with surgical precision, and when one investor tried lowballing an offer, Junseo smiled politely and destroyed him with 3 sentences. Everyone in that room feared him, and Nia was sitting beside him like she belonged there. Afterward, back in his office, Junseo reviewed her notes. You abbreviated the 3rd clause incorrectly, he said. My Japanese is rusty. It wasn't Japanese, you misunderstood the English translation. He was right. Nia had mixed up 2 technical terms. Sorry, she muttered. Don't apologize, just improve. His standards were impossibly high. But unlike her previous bosses, he didn't yell, didn't belittle, just corrected and moved forward, which somehow made it worse. The second day was busier. Back-to-back meetings, conference calls, a dinner with Korean politicians that lasted 4 hours and made Nia want to stab someone with chopsticks. Throughout it all, Junseo remained perfectly controlled, calm, unreachable. But twice she caught him watching her when he thought she wasn't looking. The 3rd day, Marcus texted during lunch. Marcus, still alive? Nia, barely. This job is insane. Marcus, coffee tonight? You need normal human interaction. Nia, yes, please. 7 p.m.? Marcus, see you then. Nia told Min-ji she was leaving at 6:30 p.m. Min-ji frowned. The boss has a meeting at 7. Then he'll take notes himself. He specifically requested you attend. Tell him I have plans. Min-ji looked scandalized. You can't just watch me. Nia left at 6:30 exactly, ignoring 3 phone calls from the office. She met Marcus at a small cafe near Hongdae, finally breathing normally for the first time in days. You look exhausted, Marcus said. I am exhausted. This job is killing me. Then quit. Can't. 3 more weeks. They talked about nothing important. Books, movies, Marcus's ridiculous students. Anything except work. Nia felt almost human again. Then her phone rang. Junseo. She declined the call. It rang again. You should probably answer that, Marcus said gently. Don't want to. But the phone kept ringing. Finally, she answered. What? Where are you? Junseo's voice was cold. Out? You missed the meeting. I told Minji I had plans. I needed you there. You survived without me. Silence, dangerous silence. Who are you with? He asked. A friend. Man or woman? Nia's temper flared. That's none of your business. Answer the question. No. She hung up. Marcus raised his eyebrows. You just hung up on Kang Junseo. Yes. You really don't value your life, do you? Apparently not. They finished their coffee. Marcus walked her to the subway station, chatting about his weekend plans. Right before Nia descended into the station, he hugged her. Just a friendly hug, quick and platonic. But when she pulled away, she saw him, Kang Junseo, standing across the street, watching, and the expression on his face made her blood run cold. Nia descended into the subway station, her heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. She didn't look back, didn't acknowledge what she'd seen, just kept moving forward like maybe if she ignored it hard enough, Kang Junseo would dissolve into the Seoul night like a hallucination. But she could still feel his eyes on her back, cold, furious, possessive. The train ride home took 30 minutes. Nia spent all of it staring at her reflection in the dark window, watching her own face blur and refocus with each passing station. Her phone stayed silent. No calls. No texts. Nothing. Somehow that felt worse than anger. She arrived at her tiny apartment in Mapogu at 9:47 p.m., exhausted down to her bones. The building was old, the elevator broken more often than not, and her studio was barely large enough for a bed and a kitchenette. But it was hers, a space Kang Junseo couldn't touch, or so she thought. Nia unlocked her door and froze. Someone had been inside. Nothing was missing, nothing disturbed, but she could feel it, the wrongness of air that had been breathed by someone else, the faint displacement of objects measured in millimeters. A coffee mug sitting 1 centimeter to the left of where she'd left it. The bathroom door open when she always kept it closed. Her blood went cold. She checked every corner, closet, under the bed, behind the shower curtain, empty. Whoever came had already left, but they'd wanted her to know. Nia sat on her bed, hands shaking, trying to breathe through rising panic. This was a message, a demonstration of power, Kang Junseo showing her that privacy was an illusion he could strip away whenever he wanted. Her phone buzzed. Unknown. Did you find it? Nia. Find what? Unknown. The contract. Nia stood and searched more carefully. On her kitchen counter, tucked beneath a bowl of fruit, was a manila envelope she definitely hadn't left there. She opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a revised employment contract, triple her current salary, exactly as promised, housing stipend, health insurance, and a clause stating her duties as personal attendant would end in exactly 27 days. Everything legally binding, professional, clean, except for the fact that it was delivered by someone who'd broken into her apartment. Nia. You broke into my home. Unknown. No. My associate did. Nia. That doesn't make it better. Unknown. You refused to answer my calls. What choice did I have? Fury cut through fear. Nia. A normal person would have waited until tomorrow. Unknown. I'm not normal. Nia. No shit. Unknown. Sign the contract. Nia. Go to hell. Unknown. You're angry. Nia. You broke into my apartment. Unknown. I needed you to understand. Nia. Understand what? Unknown. That I'm serious about this arrangement. No games, no hidden agendas, just 4 weeks of professional employment, exactly as outlined. Nia. And if I refuse? Unknown. Then I'll assume you prefer working under your current contract, which I can modify at any time, starting with tomorrow's shift assignment. The threat was implicit but clear. Sign this or face consequences. Nia wanted to throw the phone across the room. Instead, she typed carefully. Nia. I need a guarantee. Unknown. What kind? Nia. No more breaking into my home, no more surveillance, no more investigating my past. Long pause. Unknown. Fine. Nia. And after 4 weeks, you leave me alone completely. No contact, no interference, nothing. Unknown. Agreed. Naya, I want that in writing. Unknown. It's already in the contract, Section 7, subsection C. Nia flipped to the page. He was right. The termination clause was airtight. After 27 days, both parties had zero obligation to each other. No extensions, no loopholes. She hated that he'd thought of everything. Nia, fine, I'll sign it tomorrow. Unknown. Now. Nia, what? Unknown. Sign it now. Take a photo. Send it to this number. Nia, it's almost 10 p.m. Unknown. So? Nia, do you ever sleep? Unknown. Not well. Something about that admission felt too honest, too human. Nia pushed the feeling away and signed the contract with sharp, angry strokes. She photographed each page and sent them. Unknown. Good. I'll have Minji file it tomorrow. Get some rest. Tomorrow will be difficult. Naya. More difficult than today? Unknown. Much worse. We have meetings with the Nakamura Syndicate. Nia. What the hell is the Nakamura Syndicate? Unknown. Yakuza. Japanese organized crime. They're particular about protocol. Nia. You're taking me to meet the Yakuza? Unknown. Yes. Nia. I'm a hotel worker, not a criminal. Unknown. You're my attendant now, which means you go where I go. Naya. This is insane. Unknown. This is business. Be at the office by 8 a.m. Wear something professional but not aggressive. Navy or gray, no red, no patterns. Nia. Why no red? Unknown. Because red signals power in their culture, and you're not powerful. You're support staff. They need to see that immediately, or they'll view you as a threat. Nia. Great. So I'm bait. Unknown. Your protection. Nia. What does that mean? Unknown. It means they won't start a war in front of a woman, especially a foreign woman. Your presence keeps things civil. Nia. You're using me as a human shield. Unknown. I'm using you as insurance. There's a difference. Nia. Not to me. Unknown. 8 a.m. Don't be late. He disconnected. Nia threw her phone onto the bed and pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to stop the room from spinning. 27 days. That's all she had to survive. 27 days of being dragged into Kang Junseo's world of violence, power, and control. Then she could disappear. Go back to America. Find a quiet job in a quiet city. Never think about Seoul again, never think about him again. But even as she tried convincing herself, some traitorous part of her brain replayed the way he'd looked standing across the street from the subway station. Not angry, not jealous, devastated, like watching her hug Marcus had physically hurt him. Nia shook her head sharply. She couldn't afford to care about his feelings. Caring about powerful men was how women got destroyed. She'd learned that lesson young and bloody, and she wasn't repeating it. She changed into sleep clothes, set 3 alarms, and forced herself into bed. Sleep came in fragments. Nightmares of being trapped in a room with no exits, of hands reaching for her in the dark, of Kang Junseo standing over her with that same unreadable expression, asking why she kept running. She woke at 6 a.m., exhausted and furious. But the meeting with the Nakamura Syndicate happened in a private dining room at one of Seoul's most exclusive restaurants. Nia arrived wearing a gray suit she'd bought 3 years ago and hadn't touched since. It still fit, barely, though it hung looser now after years of missed meals and long shifts. Minji met her at the entrance, looking her up and down critically. "That will work," she said. "Remember, speak only when spoken to. Don't make eye contact with any of the men except the boss, and absolutely do not serve yourself food before Mr. Nakamura does." "This is insane," Nia muttered. "This is survival," Minji corrected. "The Nakamura Syndicate controls most of the Yakuza operations along the Korean-Japanese trade routes. If this negotiation fails, people die. Probably us." "Wonderful." They walked through the restaurant's main dining area, past politicians and celebrities eating lunch like the world wasn't built on violence and blood money. At the back, 2 guards stood flanking a door. They nodded at Minji and stepped aside. Inside, Kang Junseo sat at the head of a long table, perfectly still, dressed in a black suit that looked like it cost more than Nia's annual rent. Across from him sat an older Japanese man with silver hair, expensive glasses, and the kind of face that revealed nothing. Mr. Nakamura. Two younger men flanked him, bodyguards clearly, both watching Junseo like he was a bomb that might detonate any second. Junseo's eyes flicked to Nia for half a second. No acknowledgement, no warmth, just a brief calculation, checking that she'd followed instructions. Mr. Nakamura, Junseo said in flawless Japanese, thank you for agreeing to meet. Kang-san. Nakamura's voice was soft, polite, and absolutely terrifying. I hear you've been expanding operations into Busan. Business opportunities arise. I take them. Even when those opportunities belong to my associates? Silence stretched between them like a blade. Nia sat beside Junseo, keeping her eyes down, taking notes on the tablet Minji had given her. But she could feel the tension radiating from both men like heat. Your associates, Junseo said carefully, were trafficking women through Busan's port. That's not business. That's slavery. I shut it down and took over their territory. Vacant territory. They forfeited it when they chose illegal operations over legitimate trade. Nakamura smiled thinly. Interesting. The Kang Junseo I know doesn't concern himself with morality. The Kang Junseo you know doesn't tolerate competitors who bring government attention to my shipping lanes. Smart. He wasn't claiming morality, just pragmatism. Nakamura studied him for a long moment, then shifted his attention to Nia. And who is this? My attendant, Junseo said flatly. She handles international correspondence. American? Yes. Unusual choice. I prefer competence over familiarity. Nakamura's smile widened slightly, like he'd learned something interesting. Of course. The conversation continued for 90 minutes. Trade routes, shipping percentages, territory boundaries, all discussed in the same polite tone people used for weather forecasts. But beneath every word ran a current of violence barely contained. Nia took notes mechanically, trying to ignore the way her hands shook. Finally, Nakamura stood. I'll consider your proposal, he said. But understand, Kang-san, I'm not interested in partnership, only in ensuring you don't become a problem. I'm not interested in becoming your problem, Junseo replied smoothly. Only in conducting business without interference. They bowed. Formal. Correct. Completely devoid of trust. Nakamura left with his bodyguards. The room emptied until only Nia, Junseo, and Minji remained. Nia exhaled slowly, setting the tablet down with trembling fingers. That was close, Junseo finished. He's testing me, deciding whether I'm worth more alive or dead. And I just bought us 2 weeks before he makes that decision. Jesus Christ. Junseo turned to her fully for the first time. You did well. I didn't do anything. Exactly. You stayed quiet, stayed calm, and didn't react when he tried baiting you. He was baiting me. When he called you unusual, he was testing whether you'd defend yourself, whether you'd show pride or anger. Junseo's expression softened slightly. You showed neither. That impressed him. Great. The Yakuza boss thinks I'm adequately subservient. The Yakuza boss thinks you're intelligent enough to recognize danger. That's rare. Nia stood abruptly, needing distance. I need air. We have another meeting in 40 minutes. I don't care. I need 5 minutes where I'm not pretending to be okay with all this. She walked out before he could respond, pushing through the restaurant and into the street. Seoul's afternoon heat hit her like a wall. She leaned against the building, breathing hard, trying to process what she'd just witnessed. That was her life now. Sitting beside a man who negotiated with killers, taking notes while people decided whether violence was profitable. 27 days. She could survive 27 days of anything. Naya. She turned. Marcus stood 3 meters away, smiling uncertainly. Marcus? What are you doing here? Meeting a friend for lunch. What about you? His smile faded. You look terrible. Are you okay? I'm fine. You're not fine. You look like you're about to pass out. Just work stress. This new job is killing you. It's temporary. Marcus stepped closer, concern etched across his face. Nia, seriously, if you need help, I don't. But if you did, Marcus, Nia softened her tone. I appreciate it, but I'm handling it. He studied her face, clearly unconvinced. Coffee this weekend? Just us. No work talk. Yeah, that sounds good. Marcus hugged her again, quick, friendly, platonic. But when Nia pulled back, she saw him, Kang Junseo, standing in the restaurant's entrance, watching them with an expression that made her stomach drop. Marcus followed her gaze and went pale. Is that my boss? Yeah. He looks like he wants to murder me. He probably does. Nia, I have to go. I'll text you later. She crossed the street quickly, leaving Marcus behind. Junseo's eyes tracked her movement, cold and predatory. Friend of yours? He asked quietly. Yes. The same friend from last night? Yes. You didn't mention he was male. You didn't ask. Junseo's jaw tightened. How well do you know him? Well enough. Meaning he's my friend. Nothing more. He hugs you like it's more. Nia's temper flared. That's none of your business. Everything about you is my business now. No, my work is your business. My personal life belongs to me. They stared at each other, tension crackling between them like static electricity. You're right, Junseo said finally. I apologize. The apology surprised her more than the anger. What? I overstepped. Your relationships outside work are your concern, not mine. He paused. But understand something. Men like your friend, kind, friendly, safe, they don't survive in my world. If he gets involved with you while you're working for me, he becomes a target. Fear spiked through Nia's chest. Are you threatening him? I'm warning you. People who matter to me become leverage, and leverage gets used by my enemies. I don't matter to you. Don't you? The question hung between them, heavy with implication. Nia forced herself to breathe evenly. You promised 4 weeks. Professional, nothing personal. I know what I promised. Then stop acting like you own me. Something dark flashed across his face. I don't want to own you. Then what do you want? Junseo stepped closer, not touching, just close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. I don't know yet, he admitted quietly. But I'm trying to figure it out. Well, figure it out faster, because I'm leaving in 27 days whether you've decided or not. I know. Good. They stood there, locked in silent confrontation, until Min-ji appeared in the doorway. Sir, the next meeting starts in 10 minutes. Junseo stepped back, breaking the moment. Let's go. The next 2 weeks blurred together in a haze of meetings, negotiations, and late nights. Nia learned to read Junseo's moods by micro-expressions, the slight tightening of his jaw when someone lied, the half-second pause before he demolished an opponent's argument, the way his fingers drummed once against his thigh when violence was being considered. She also learned he never slept more than 4 hours, never ate unless forced, and spent most nights alone in his office, working through contracts and reports like a man trying to outrun his own thoughts. 3 times, Nia found him passed out at his desk at 3 a.m., still in his suit, surrounded by paperwork. The first time she left quietly. The second time she brought coffee and left it on his desk. The third time she stayed. It was 2:47 a.m. on a Thursday. Nia had returned to the office after leaving her phone behind, planning to grab it quickly and leave. But Junseo's office light was still on. She knocked softly. No answer. Pushed the door open. He was slumped over his desk, breathing shallow, one hand still holding a pen. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. He looked exhausted, fragile, human. Nia stood there for a long moment, debating whether to wake him. Then she noticed the empty coffee cups. 6 of them, and the medication bottle half hidden beneath paperwork. She picked it up. Prescription sleeping pills. The dosage crossed out and rewritten multiple times, increasing each time. He wasn't sleeping. He was forcing unconsciousness and calling it rest. Shit, Nia whispered. She should leave. Walk away. This wasn't her problem. But she couldn't stop seeing the exhaustion carved into his face, the vulnerability he never showed when conscious. Carefully, she touched his shoulder. Junseo. He woke instantly, hand moving to his waist where she knew he kept a gun. But he stopped when he recognized her. Nia. His voice was rough with sleep. What time is it? Almost 3 a.m. When did you last eat? I don't remember. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Nia grabbed her phone and ordered food from the only restaurant still open, a 24-hour convenience store that delivered. Then she sat across from him, arms crossed. You can't keep doing this. Doing what? This. Working yourself to death. You're going to collapse. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're running on coffee and pills and sheer stubbornness. Junso leaned back, studying her with those unreadable eyes. Why do you care? I don't. Liar. Fine. I care because if you collapse, I'm stuck dealing with Minji full time, and she terrifies me more than you do. The ghost of a smile crossed his face. She is frightening. Incredibly, the food arrived. Nia forced him to eat, watching until he finished most of it. He obeyed without argument, which somehow felt more intimate than anything else they'd shared. When did you last sleep properly? She asked. Define properly. More than 4 hours. Without pills. 3 years ago. The honesty startled her. 3 years? About that? What happened 3 years ago? Junso set his chopsticks down carefully. My brother died. The words dropped between them like stones. I'm sorry, Nia said quietly. Don't be. He was trying to kill me at the time. What? Family business. He wanted control of the organization. I refused. We fought. He lost. Nia felt cold. You killed your own brother? No, his own ambition killed him. I just survived it. But you blame yourself. Of course I do. He was my responsibility. I should have seen it coming, should have stopped him before it reached that point. You can't control other people's choices. I control everything else. Not people. Junso looked at her for a long moment. Is that why you're leaving Seoul? Because you can't control what happened in Chicago? Nia's blood went cold. You promised not to investigate my past. I promised not to dig further, but I already knew the basics before we made that agreement. Then you know it's none of your business. I know you ran from something or someone. Stop. I know you're terrified of powerful men because one hurt you. I said stop. I know you think leaving Seoul will fix it, but you're wrong. Nia stood abruptly, fury cutting through fear. You don't know anything about me. I know you're exhausted. I know you're lonely. I know you spend every day building walls higher because you think that's how you survive. Junso stood as well. But I also know those walls are killing you slowly, just like my inability to sleep is killing me. That's not the same thing, isn't it? We're both running from ghosts. Mine just happened to be blood-related. Nia wanted to yell at him, to walk out, to prove he was wrong. But she couldn't, because he was right. I need to go, she whispered. Stay. Why? Because I sleep better when you're here. The vulnerability in his voice cracked something inside her chest. That's not fair. I know. I can't fix you. I'm not asking you to. I'm just asking you to stay for 20 minutes until the medication kicks in and I can actually rest. It was a terrible idea, but Nia found herself sitting back down. They didn't talk, just existed in the same space, silence stretching between them like a bridge neither knew how to cross. After 15 minutes, Junseo's breathing evened out. His shoulders relaxed. The tension carved into his face softened. He looked younger when he slept, less terrifying, more human. Nia stood carefully, planning to leave, but his hand caught her wrist. Don't go yet, he murmured, half asleep. I have to. Please. That single word broke her. She sat back down and let him hold her wrist loosely while he drifted deeper into sleep. His grip was gentle, non-threatening, but somehow impossibly intimate, like she was the only thing anchoring him to earth. Nia stayed until 4 a.m., then carefully extracted her hand and left him sleeping peacefully for the first time in 3 years. The next morning, Junseo didn't mention what happened. Neither did Nia. They fell back into professional distance like the previous night had been a dream. But something had shifted. He started eating regularly, always when she reminded him. Started leaving his office before midnight, always after she finished her shift. Started looking at her differently, like she was a puzzle he was slowly solving. And Nia found herself noticing things she shouldn't. The way his jaw tightened when he was frustrated. The rare half-smile when something amused him. The exhaustion he hid behind perfect control. Marcus noticed too. "You talk about him differently now," he said over weekend coffee. "I don't talk about him at all." "Exactly. 3 weeks ago you complained constantly. Now you don't mention him unless I ask." "Because there's nothing to mention." "Or because you're starting to care and that terrifies you." Nia stared into her coffee. "I'm leaving in 13 days. "Are you?" "Yes." "Then why haven't you booked a flight yet?" She looked up sharply. "How do you know I haven't?" "Because you always book flights months in advance, but this time you keep saying you'll do it tomorrow. Then tomorrow comes and you say it again." "I've been busy." "You're avoiding it. I'm not—" "Nia." Marcus's voice gentled. "What are you scared of?" Everything. She was scared of everything. Scared of leaving Seoul and realizing she'd miss it. Scared of staying and getting trapped. Scared of Kang Junseo and the way he looked at her like she was the only real thing in his carefully constructed world. Scared that maybe she looked at him the same way. "I don't know," she admitted quietly. "Then maybe you should figure it out, before you run out of time." That night, Nia returned to the office late. She'd left her jacket behind again, a habit she was developing that probably wasn't accidental. The building was quiet, dark except for security lights and one office on the 9th floor. Junseo's. Nia took the elevator up, planning to grab her jacket and leave quickly. But when she reached his door, she heard voices inside, raised voices. She knocked. The voices stopped. "Come in." Nia pushed the door open. Junseo stood behind his desk, jaw tight, radiating controlled fury. Across from him stood a Korean woman in her 40s, expensive jewelry, designer clothes, and an expression of cold superiority. "Mrs. Kang," Junseo said tightly, "this is Nia Bennett, my attendant. Nia, this is my mother." His mother. The woman looked Nia up and down with unconcealed disgust. "This is the American you've been wasting time with?" "I'm not wasting anything," Junseo said coldly. "You're destroying your reputation, bringing a foreign woman into business meetings, letting her sit beside you like an equal. The families are talking. Let them talk. They're questioning your judgment, your commitment, your suitability to lead. My leadership isn't your concern anymore. Everything you do concerns me. I built this organization. You married into it. I built what it is now." Mrs. Kang's expression turned venomous. "Your brother understood loyalty. He understood tradition. You understand nothing except your own selfish desires. My brother understood greed. That's why he's dead." Silence crashed between them. Mrs. Kang turned her attention back to Nia, eyes narrowing. "How much is he paying you?" "That's none of your business," Nia said quietly. "Everything about my son is my business, especially when he's making decisions that could destroy everything we've built." "I'm not destroying anything," Junseo cut in. "I'm conducting business. Nia is my employee, nothing more." The words hit Nia harder than they should have. Nothing more. Of course. That's all she was. All she could ever be. Mrs. Kang smiled coldly. "Good. Then you won't mind when I arrange your marriage to the Park family daughter. It's time you produced an heir." Junseo's expression went deadly calm. "I'm not marrying anyone. You don't have a choice. The council has already agreed. The engagement will be announced next month." "No. This isn't a negotiation. Get out." Mrs. Kang's composure cracked slightly. "Excuse me? Get out of my office. Junseo, now." His voice dropped to something barely above a whisper, but the violence underneath was unmistakable. Mrs. Kang stared at him for a long moment, then smiled bitterly. "You're just like your father, destroying yourself for temporary pleasures. I hope she's worth it." She swept past Nia without another glance. The door closed. Silence swallowed the room. Junseo stood perfectly still, breathing carefully, hands clenched into fists. "I'm sorry you witnessed that," he said finally. "It's fine. It's not fine. Your personal life isn't my concern. It is when my mother drags you into it." Nia grabbed her jacket from the chair. "I should go." "Nia, You don't owe me explanations. I'm just your employee, nothing more. She threw his words back at him deliberately. Pain flashed across his face. You know that's not true. Is it? Because from where I'm standing, I'm exactly what your mother said. A temporary distraction. No. Then what am I? Junseo crossed the distance between them in 3 strides, stopping just close enough that she could feel the heat of his body. You're the first person in 3 years who makes me feel human again, he said quietly. You're the reason I sleep, the reason I eat, the reason I give a damn about surviving another day. Nia's breath caught. That's not fair. I know. I'm leaving in 13 days. I know. So this, whatever this is, it can't happen. I know that too. They stood there inches apart, both knowing this was impossible and neither able to step away. What do you want from me? Nia whispered. Junseo reached up slowly, gently cupping her face like she was something precious. I want you to stop running long enough to see what this could be. And if I can't, then I'll let you go, like I promised. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone, soft, careful, not possessive, just tender. Nia's eyes burned with unshed tears. I don't know how to do this. Neither do I. I'm terrified of you. I'm terrified of you too. Why? Because you have the power to destroy me completely. And I'm letting you. The honesty in his voice shattered every defense Nia had left. She leaned forward, resting her forehead against his chest, just breathing. His arms came around her carefully, holding her like she might break. They stood there for a long time, not speaking, just existing in the same broken space. Finally, Nia pulled back. I should go. I know. But neither of them moved. Then Junseo's phone rang. He glanced at it, and his expression went cold. I have to take this. Okay. Nia grabbed her jacket and headed for the door. Nia, she turned. Tomorrow. We need to talk. About everything. Okay. She left before he could see the tears sliding down her face. But tomorrow never came. The next morning, Nia woke to 17 missed calls from Minji. She called back immediately, heart pounding. Where have you been? Minji's voice was sharp with panic. Sleeping. What's wrong? There was an attack last night. Nakamura's men hit one of our warehouses. Ice flooded Nia's veins. Is Junso... He's fine, but he's leaving. Leaving where? Japan. He's flying to Tokyo in 3 hours to handle this personally. For how long? I don't know. Could be days, could be weeks. Nia's stomach dropped. I need to see him. He's already at the airport. Private terminal. He said to tell you... Minji hesitated. He said to tell you he's sorry. The line went dead. Nia stared at her phone, mind racing. 13 days left, and he was leaving without saying goodbye. She grabbed her keys and ran. The drive to the airport took 45 minutes in Seoul's morning traffic. Nia broke at least a dozen traffic laws and didn't care. She burst into the private terminal, ignored security, and ran toward the only departure gate lit up. And there he was. Kang Junseo stood beside a luxury jet, dressed in all black, surrounded by guards. He looked up as she approached, surprise and something else, pain, flashing across his face. Nia, you were leaving, she gasped, breathless, without saying goodbye. I didn't think you'd want to see me. You're an idiot. Probably. They stared at each other. How long? Nia asked. I don't know. You could die. Yes. And you were just going to leave? Without... Her voice cracked. Without anything? Junseo stepped closer, ignoring his guards. I was trying to make it easier. Easier for who? For you, so you wouldn't feel obligated to stay when I came back. You don't get to make that decision for me. Nia, I hate that you matter this much, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I hate that I can't stop thinking about you. I hate that the thought of you dying in Japan makes me feel like I can't breathe. And I hate that I don't know what to do about any of it. Junseo's careful control shattered. He crossed the final distance between them and pulled her into his arms, holding her tight enough that she could feel his heartbeat. I don't want to leave, he admitted against her hair. Then don't. I have to. I know. They held each other while guards pretended not to notice, and the jet engines hummed in the background. Finally, Junseo pulled back just enough to look at her face. When I come back, if you come back. When I come back, he repeated firmly. We're going to figure this out. No more running, no more walls, just us. I'm leaving in 13 days. Then we'll figure it out in 13 days. And if we can't? Then at least we tried. He leaned forward and pressed his forehead against hers, breathing her in like she was oxygen. Wait for me, he whispered. I don't make promises I can't keep. Then don't promise, just try. Naya nodded, not trusting her voice. Junseo stepped back reluctantly. I have to go. I know? He walked toward the jet, each step looking like it hurt. At the stairs, he turned back one last time. Nia. Yeah? Thank you for making me feel alive again. Then he was gone. Nia stood on the tarmac, watching the jet taxi down the runway, feeling like her heart was flying away with it. And for the first time in 3 years, she realized something terrifying. She didn't want to leave Seoul anymore, because somewhere between the fear and the fighting and the late-night conversations, Kang Junseo had become the one place her broken heart felt safe. And now he was flying toward a war that might kill him. While she stood helpless on the ground, counting down 13 days that suddenly felt like forever, Nia drove back to Seoul in a fog, her hands shaking so badly she had to pull over twice just to breathe. The jet had disappeared into the gray sky 30 minutes ago, carrying Kang Junseo toward violence she couldn't protect him from. And the worst part, the part that made her want to scream until her throat bled, was realizing she wanted to protect him at all. She'd spent 3 years building walls specifically to prevent this, to prevent caring about someone who could be ripped away by bullets or politics or the brutal mathematics of organized crime. But here she was, terrified, helpless, completely undone by a man who promised her nothing except honesty. Her phone rang. Marcus. Hey, she answered, voice raw. Are you okay? You sound weird. I'm fine. Nia, I said I'm fine. Silence. Then Marcus's voice, gentler. Where are you? Driving back from the airport. Why were you at the airport? Because the man she swore she didn't care about just flew into a war zone, and she ran after him like some desperate character from a movie she'd mock if it wasn't her own life. Work thing, she lied. At 7 in the morning? It's complicated. Everything with you is complicated lately. Marcus paused. Coffee? I'm worried about you. I can't. I need to… What? Sit in her apartment and stare at her phone waiting for news that might never come? I need to work. Nia, you're spiraling. I'm handling it. No, you're not. And I get it. Whatever's happening with your boss, it's clearly messing with your head. But running yourself into the ground won't fix anything. I'm not running, but yes, you are. You're doing exactly what you did in Chicago, working yourself to death so you don't have to feel anything. Nia's hands tightened on the steering wheel. You don't know what happened in Chicago. I know enough. I know you left in the middle of the night 3 years ago with one suitcase and a plane ticket. I know you won't talk about it, and I know you're terrified of letting anyone get close. Marcus, I'm your friend, Nia. Let me help. But he couldn't help. Nobody could. Because the problem wasn't external. It was inside her chest, wrapped around her heart like barbed wire, squeezing tighter every time she thought about Junseo facing Nakamura's men alone. I have to go, she whispered. Nia. She hung up. 20 minutes later, she pulled into the Orion Crown's parking garage and sat in her car for 10 minutes, trying to compose herself. Her reflection in the rearview mirror showed someone she barely recognized. Dark circles under red-rimmed eyes, hair falling out of its tie, expression haunted. She looked like she was grieving someone who wasn't even dead yet. Finally, she forced herself out of the car and into the building. The hotel was busy with morning checkout traffic, tourists dragging luggage, businessmen scrolling phones. Normal people living normal lives, completely unaware that somewhere over the Sea of Japan, the man who owned this building was flying toward potential execution. Nia took the elevator to the 9th floor. Minji was waiting, expression tight. You went to the airport? Yes. That was stupid. Probably. Minji studied her for a long moment, then sighed. Come on, we have work. What work? He's gone. Which means someone has to manage his schedule, handle correspondence, and keep the organization running while he's dealing with Nakamura. Minji handed her a tablet. That someone is us. The tablet displayed a calendar packed with meetings, calls, and appointments stretching through the next 2 weeks. Nia stared at it, overwhelmed. I can't do all this. You have to. The boss specifically instructed that you continue operating as his representative for any American or European contacts. I'll handle Korean and Japanese business. Why me? Because you're the only person he trusts with this. Minji's expression softened slightly. He wouldn't have left if he didn't believe you could handle it. The words hit harder than they should have. He trusted her. Nia scrolled through the schedule, forcing herself to focus. Conference call with investors in London. Meeting with shipping contractors. Review of quarterly reports. All tasks that seemed impossible without Junseo's calm authority backing her up. When do we hear from him? She asked quietly. We don't. Radio silence until the situation is resolved. And if it's not resolved? Minji didn't answer. She didn't have to. The next 3 days crawled by like torture. Nia worked 16-hour shifts, handling calls and meetings on autopilot, maintaining Junseo's business empire while her mind screamed with worry. Every phone call made her jump. Every news alert about violence in Tokyo made her stomach drop. But there was nothing. No word, no updates, just silence. Marcus texted repeatedly. She ignored most of them. Marcus, please talk to me. Marcus, I know you're not okay. Marcus, coffee? Lunch? Just 20 minutes? Finally, on the 4th day, she agreed to meet him. Mostly because sitting alone in her apartment was driving her insane. They met at a quiet cafe in Itaewon. Marcus took one look at her and grimaced. Jesus, Nia, when did you last sleep? I sleep. When? Couple hours here and there. That's not sleep. That's surviving. Same thing. Marcus reached across the table and grabbed her hand. Talk to me, please. And suddenly, Nia couldn't hold it in anymore. The words spilled out. Not everything, but enough. The job. The intensity. The way Junseo looked at her like she was the only real thing in his world. The airport. The fear. I don't know what's happening to me, she admitted, voice breaking. I came to Seoul to escape. To stay invisible. To not let anyone matter. And now I'm sitting here terrified that a man I've known for 3 weeks is going to die in Japan and I'll never... She stopped, unable to finish. Marcus squeezed her hand. You fell for him. No. Nia, I can't fall for him. He's dangerous. His world is violence, and I leave in 10 days. Do you? Yes. You still haven't booked a flight. Nia pulled her hand back. I've been busy. You've been avoiding it because you don't actually want to leave. That's not true, isn't it? 3 weeks ago, you couldn't wait to get out of Korea. Now you can barely breathe thinking about it. Because 3 weeks ago, Seoul was just a temporary stop. A place to hide while she figured out who she was after Chicago destroyed her. Now it was the city where Kang Junseo existed. And leaving meant never knowing if he survived. Never knowing what they could have been. I'm so tired, Nia whispered. I know. I don't know what to do. Then don't do anything. Just wait. See what happens when he comes back. If he comes back. When? Marcus insisted. Men like Kang Junseo don't die easily. Nia wanted to believe that, but she'd learned young that wanting something didn't make it true. Her phone buzzed. Minji. Minji. Office. Now. Emergency. Nia's heart stopped. I have to go, she said, already standing. Marcus stood too. Nia, I'll call you later. She ran. Nia burst into Minji's office 7 minutes later, breathless and terrified. What happened? Is he... He's alive, Minji said quickly. But there's a problem. Relief and fear battled for dominance. What kind of problem? Minji pulled up security footage on her computer, grainy black and white video showing the hotel's underground parking garage. This was taken 2 hours ago. The footage showed a man entering through a service door. Dark clothes, baseball cap pulled low, moving with purpose. He approached Nia's car, knelt beside the driver's side, and attached something underneath the chassis, then left. The entire interaction took 90 seconds. Nia felt cold. What is that? Tracking device. Possibly more. More? Bomb squad is checking now, but even if it's just a tracker, someone wants to know where you go, which means I'm a target. Minji nodded grimly. Nakamura's people. They're trying to get leverage against the boss. You're the easiest target. I'm nobody. You were at the airport when he left, in front of all his guards, crying, begging him not to go. Minji's expression hardened. Nakamura's intelligence network is thorough. They know exactly what you mean to him now. Nia sat down heavily, mind racing. So what do I do? Move into the hotel, secured floor, 24-hour protection. For how long? Until this is over. I can't just abandon my life. Your life is forfeit if Nakamura decides you're useful leverage. Do you understand what they do to leverage, Nia? They don't kill you quickly. They make it last. Record it. Send pieces of you to your employer until he complies with their demands. Nia tasted bile. This is insane. This is the world you entered when you agreed to work for Kang Jun-seo. He said it would be professional, 4 weeks, nothing personal. And yet here we are. Minji leaned forward. I'm not judging you. The boss is difficult to resist once he decides he wants something. But you need to understand the consequences. People die in this world, often, violently. And the ones who survive wish they hadn't. Then let me leave. I'll fly to America tonight, disappear. They'll have no reason to come after me. You really think they'll just let you walk away? You know too much now. You've sat in meetings with the boss, heard names, seen faces. You're either protected or eliminated. There's no middle ground. Nia wanted to scream. So I'm trapped. Yes, because I was stupid enough to care about someone I shouldn't. Minji's expression softened slightly. For what it's worth, I think he cares about you too. More than he's cared about anyone since his brother died. That's why this is so dangerous. Emotion makes men like him vulnerable, and vulnerability gets people killed. Nia's phone buzzed. Unknown number. Her stomach dropped. She showed Minji, who immediately grabbed her phone and connected it to a tracing program. Answer it. Keep him talking. Nia's hand shook as she pressed accept. Hello? Miss Bennett. The voice was smooth, polite, and absolutely terrifying. Japanese accent. I hope I'm not interrupting. Who is this? A friend or an enemy. That depends entirely on your cooperation. Nakamura, it had to be. What do you want? A conversation, face to face, tonight. I'm not meeting you. Then we'll have a different kind of conversation. The kind that involves your friend Marcus Reed. Ice flooded Nia's veins. Leave him out of this. He's already in it. We've been watching him for 3 days. Nice apartment in Mapogu. Teaches English at Seoul Academy. Jogs every morning at 6. Very predictable. If you touch him, you'll what? Tell Kang Jun-seo? He's rather busy in Tokyo at the moment. Probably won't even know Marcus is dead until the body turns up. Nia's vision blurred with rage and terror. What do you want? I told you, a conversation, tonight, 9 p.m. I'll send you the address. Why would I trust you? Because if you don't come, Marcus dies. And then we start working through everyone else you've ever cared about. Your supervisor, Mrs. Choi, the security guard who always says good morning, that barista at the cafe you frequent. Nakamura paused. Pain is more effective when it's spread across multiple victims. Don't you agree? You're a monster. I'm a businessman, and Kang Jun-seo has something I want, access to the southern shipping routes. He'll give them to me to save you. I'm nobody to him. We both know that's not true. The line went dead. Nia stared at her phone, shaking so hard she nearly dropped it. Minji was already on another line, barking orders in rapid Korean. She hung up and turned to Nia. Security is picking up Marcus now. He'll be brought here. What about everyone else? Mrs. Choi? The guard? Protected. All of them. Minji's jaw tightened. But Nakamura's right about one thing. If you don't show up tonight, he'll escalate. Start killing people until you do. Then I'll go. Absolutely not. That's suicide. What choice do I have? Let me contact the boss. You said yourself there's radio silence. We can't reach him. Nia stood, forcing her voice steady. I go. I meet Nakamura. I figure out what he really wants. He wants leverage. Then he'll get it. Just keep everyone else safe. Minji grabbed her arm. You don't understand what you're walking into. Men like Nakamura don't negotiate. They destroy. Then I guess I'm about to be destroyed. Nia pulled free and walked toward the door. Nia, Minji's voice stopped her. The boss will never forgive me if I let you do this. Then don't tell him until after. He'll kill me. He'll understand. Will he? Because from where I'm standing, you're about to throw your life away for people who mean nothing to him. They mean something to me. And you mean something to him, more than shipping routes, more than territory, more than any of this. Minji's voice cracked slightly. Don't make me watch another person he cares about die. The words hit like bullets. I don't have a choice. There's always a choice. Not when it costs other people their lives. Nia left before Minji could argue further. The address Nakamura sent was a warehouse in Incheon, 40 minutes outside Seoul. Nia drove there alone, ignoring 17 calls from Minji and 3 from Marcus, who'd apparently been pulled from his apartment by security and was furious about it. She arrived at 8:53 p.m. The warehouse loomed against the night sky, dark and industrial, surrounded by shipping containers and abandoned equipment. Every instinct screamed trap, but she got out of the car anyway. 2 men in dark suits appeared from the shadows, patting her down efficiently before gesturing toward a side entrance. They didn't speak. Didn't need to. Their presence said everything. Inside, the warehouse was mostly empty except for stacked pallets and dim overhead lights. At the center sat a table with 2 chairs. Nakamura occupied one of them, looking exactly like he had in the restaurant. Silver hair, expensive glasses, and that same terrifying calm. Miss Bennett, he gestured to the empty chair. Please. Nia sat, hands clenched in her lap to hide the shaking. You wanted to talk, so talk. Nakamura smiled. Direct, I appreciate that. Very American. What do you want from Junseo? The same thing I wanted before, control of the southern routes, but he refuses. Claims they're too valuable to share. So take them. I would, but he's made that difficult. Smart security, loyal people, strong defenses. Nakamura leaned back. Except for one weakness, you. I'm nobody. You're the woman he abandoned a war for. The woman who made him feel again after 3 years of nothing. The woman who stood on an airport tarmac begging him not to leave. Nakamura's smile widened. Do you know what that kind of vulnerability is worth? Nothing. He'll choose business over me. Will he? Let's find out. Nakamura pulled out his phone and made a call, putting it on speaker. It rang twice. Then a voice answered, rough with exhaustion and danger. What? Junseo. Nia's heart nearly stopped. Kang-san, Nakamura said pleasantly. I hope Tokyo is treating you well. Silence. Then, cold and lethal. What do you want? To offer you a deal. The southern routes in exchange for something you value. I don't value anything enough to give you those routes. Not even Miss Bennett? Nia heard Junseo's sharp inhale through the phone. What did you do? His voice dropped to something barely human. Nothing yet. She's sitting across from me right now. Unharmed. Cooperative. But that can change very quickly if you don't reconsider my offer. Let me talk to her. Of course. Nakamura slid the phone across the table. Nia picked it up with shaking hands. Junseo? Are you hurt? No. Did they touch you? No. Nia, listen to me very carefully. His voice was controlled, but underneath ran a current of absolute fury. Whatever he asks, agree. Whatever he wants, give it to him. Do you understand? I'm not giving him anything. Do you understand? He repeated, harder. Yes. Good. I'm leaving Tokyo now. I'll be there in 4 hours. You have 1 hour, Nakamura interrupted, taking the phone back. After that, I start removing Miss Bennett's fingers. 1 per every 15 minutes, you're late. The phone went dead. Nakamura set it down and looked at Nia with something almost like pity. He'll come. He'll kill you. Perhaps, but first he'll give me what I want. Men always do when the stakes are high enough. Nia's mind raced, trying to find an angle, an escape, anything. Why are you doing this? You're Yakuza. You're supposed to have honor. Nakamura laughed. Honor is a story we tell ourselves to justify violence. The truth is simpler. I want power. Kang Junseo has it. This is how I take it. By threatening an innocent person? There are no innocent people in this world, Miss Bennett. Only those who hide their guilt better. I'm not part of your world. I clean hotel rooms. You were. Now you're Kang Junseo's weakness, which makes you part of the most dangerous world that exists. He stood, buttoning his jacket. We have an hour. I suggest you make peace with whatever needs making. He walked away, leaving Nia alone at the table with 2 guards watching from the shadows. She sat there, mind spinning, trying to figure out how everything went so wrong so fast. 10 days ago, she was counting down her departure, planning her exit, ready to leave Seoul forever. Now she was sitting in a warehouse waiting to be used as leverage against a man she'd tried desperately not to care about. Her phone, still in her pocket, miraculously, buzzed. She checked it carefully, shielding it from the guards. Minji. Don't do anything stupid. Help is coming. Nia. What kind of help? Minji. The kind that makes people disappear. Before Nia could respond, one of the guards approached. Phone. She handed it over without argument. He checked it, saw only the message from Minji, and pocketed it, then went back to his position. 53 minutes until Junseo arrived. 53 minutes to figure out how to survive this without destroying him in the process. Because Nakamura was right about one thing. Junseo would trade everything to save her. The routes, the territory, his entire empire. And Nia couldn't let that happen. She'd spent 3 years running from her past, building walls to protect herself, refusing to let anyone matter enough to hurt her. But somewhere along the way, Kang Junseo had slipped past every defense, made her care, made her hope, made her believe that maybe dangerous men weren't all the same. And now that care was about to cost him everything. Nia closed her eyes, breathing slowly, forcing herself to think. There had to be a way out of this. Some move Nakamura hadn't anticipated, some card she could play. But what? She was unarmed, outnumbered, trapped in a warehouse with men who killed for a living. And the one person who could save her was flying into a trap that would destroy him, unless she found another option. The guards were talking quietly in Japanese, not paying close attention. Nakamura had disappeared into an office in the back. The warehouse had multiple exits, but all were visible from where the guards stood. Nia's eyes drifted to the stacked pallets nearby, heavy, unstable looking. If she could somehow topple them, a door crashed open, not the entrance. The loading dock on the far side. 3 men in tactical gear stormed in, weapons raised, moving with military precision. The guards drew guns instantly. Gunfire erupted. Nia dove under the table, heart hammering, ears ringing from the noise. Bullets tore through wood and metal, ricocheting off concrete. Someone screamed, glass shattered. More footsteps. Then silence. Nia stayed frozen, barely breathing. Clear, a voice called in Korean. Footsteps approached. Miss Bennett. She looked up. One of the tactical team members crouched beside her, pulling off his helmet. It was the security guard from the Orion Crown, the one who always said good morning. Mr. Kang sent us, he said quietly. We need to move. Now. Nia let him pull her upright, legs shaking. Around them, Nakamura's guards lay motionless. No sign of Nakamura himself. Did you He escaped. Back exit. But he won't get far. They moved quickly toward the loading dock where a black SUV waited, engine running. Nia was pushed into the back seat as the tactical team piled in around her. The vehicle tore out of the warehouse district, speeding through Incheon's industrial streets. Nia sat in shock, trying to process what just happened. How did you find me? Your phone. Minji tracked it before the guard took it. Is Minji? She's fine, coordinating with the boss. Where is he? In the air, 30 minutes out. The SUV turned sharply, nearly throwing Nia against the door. Through the window, she saw headlights following. We've got company, the driver said tersely. The tactical team members checked weapons. "How many?" the guard asked. "3 vehicles, maybe 12 men." "Can we outrun them?" "Not to the hotel. They'll intercept before we reach Gangnam." "Then we don't go to the hotel." The driver nodded and took a hard left, heading toward the highway. Nia's heart hammered as the SUV wove through traffic, the pursuing vehicles keeping pace. This was insane. Completely insane. Gunfire suddenly shattered the rear window. Everyone ducked as bullets tore through metal and upholstery. The driver didn't slow, just pushed harder, the engine screaming. "Return fire," the guard ordered. 2 team members leaned out the windows, firing back. Nia pressed herself into the seat, hands over her ears, trying not to think about Marcus or Minji or anyone else who might die because she'd been stupid enough to walk into Nakamura's trap. The highway appeared ahead. The driver merged at 90 kilometers per hour, narrowly missing a truck. One of the pursuing vehicles wasn't so lucky. It clipped the truck's bumper and spun out, disappearing into the darkness. 2 more remained. "Boss is landing in 15 minutes, someone said. "We need to hold until—" The SUV suddenly lurched violently sideways. They'd been rammed. The driver fought to control the vehicle, but they were going too fast. The SUV spun once, twice, then slammed into the concrete barrier. Impact. Darkness. When Nia opened her eyes, she was upside down, suspended by her seatbelt. Blood dripped from somewhere on her face. The vehicle had flipped completely. Around her, the tactical team was trying to extract themselves. The driver wasn't moving. "Out," the guard said urgently. "We need to get out before—" Headlights appeared. 2 vehicles stopping nearby. Doors opened. Nakamura's men. "Move!" the guard hissed, pulling Nia free of the wreckage. They scrambled onto the highway, retreating toward the tree line beyond the barrier. But Nia's leg wouldn't support her weight properly. She stumbled. The guard caught her. "I've got you. Just keep moving." But Nakamura's men were faster. They surrounded the small group within seconds, guns raised. And then Nakamura himself appeared, looking annoyed but unhurt. "Miss Bennett," he said, "you're making this significantly more difficult than necessary." The guard stepped in front of Nia protectively. "Kang Jun-seo will kill every single one of you." "Perhaps. But first he'll watch Miss Bennett suffer. And that will be enough." Nakamura nodded to his men. They opened fire. The guard went down first, 3 bullets to the chest. The tactical team members fell seconds later, outgunned and outnumbered. Nia stood alone, ears ringing, covered in blood that wasn't hers. Nakamura approached slowly. "You know what's interesting about Kang Jun-seo? For 3 years, everyone thought he was untouchable. No weaknesses, no vulnerabilities. Then you appeared, and suddenly the great Mafia Boss became human again." He stopped directly in front of her. "Men who feel are men who can be broken." Nia's voice came out steady despite everything. "Then you don't understand him at all." Nakamura's expression shifted to something like curiosity. "Explain." "Men who feel nothing are already broken. Men who feel everything and still keep fighting, they're the ones you should fear." For a moment, something flickered across Nakamura's face. Then he smiled coldly. "We'll see. Put her in the van." 2 men grabbed Nia's arms, dragging her toward one of the vehicles. She fought uselessly, exhausted and injured. Then she heard it. A helicopter. Low, fast, military grade. Everyone looked up. The helicopter descended rapidly, spotlight flooding the highway. Wind whipped dust and debris into the air. The side door opened, and Kang Jun-seo jumped out before it even touched the ground. He landed in a crouch, absorbing the impact, then stood slowly. Black suit, no weapons visible. But the violence radiating from him was unmistakable. He looked at the dead tactical team, at the destroyed SUV, at Nia, held between 2 men with guns, then at Nakamura. "Let her go." Nakamura smiled. "I don't think so. We had a deal, remember? The southern routes—" Jun-seo moved. 1 second he was standing still. The next, he'd closed the 15-meter distance, disarmed 1 man, broken another's arm, and had Nakamura himself on the ground with a gun pressed against his temple. The entire thing took maybe 3 seconds. Nakamura's remaining men froze, unsure whether shooting would hit their boss. "I'm going to say this once," Jun-seo said quietly, voice absolutely lethal. You let her go. You leave Seoul. You never threaten anyone I care about again, or I kill you right now and deal with the war later. You can't. Junso pressed the gun harder. I've killed men for less. My own brother died for less. Don't test me. Nakamura's composure finally cracked. Let me up and she goes free. Let her go first. Nakamura nodded to his men. They released Nia. She stumbled forward, nearly collapsing, but Junso caught her with one arm, still keeping the gun trained on Nakamura with the other. Walk, he told her quietly. They moved backward toward the helicopter together, Junso never taking his eyes off Nakamura. At the helicopter, he finally lowered the gun. If I see you in Seoul again, he said, I won't be this merciful. Then he lifted Nia into the helicopter and climbed in after her. They lifted off as Nakamura's men opened fire uselessly at the retreating aircraft. Inside, Nia collapsed against the seat, shaking violently. Adrenaline crash hitting all at once. Junseo knelt beside her, hands moving over her face, checking for injuries. Where are you hurt? I don't know. Everywhere. Nowhere. His hands were gentle but thorough, cataloging damage. Cut on your forehead, probably bruised ribs, possible concussion. His jaw tightened. Nia, what the hell were you thinking? He threatened Marcus, Mrs. Choi, everyone. So you walked into a trap? What else was I supposed to do? Let me handle it. You were in Tokyo. I left the second Nakamura called. I told you to wait. People were going to die. You almost died. Junseo's control shattered completely. Do you have any idea what that would have done to me? Do you understand that I left an active war zone and flew 4 hours not knowing if you'd still be alive when I got here? Nia stared at him, seeing the terror beneath his fury. I'm sorry, she whispered. Don't apologize, just... He stopped, breathing hard. Just don't do that again. Okay. He pulled her against his chest, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. But she didn't complain, just pressed her face into his shoulder and let herself shake. I thought I lost you, he said against her hair. I thought I lost you too. They held each other while the helicopter carried them back to Seoul, leaving Nakamura and his men in the wreckage of the highway behind. But as Nia closed her eyes, exhaustion pulling her under, one thought circled her mind like a vulture. This wasn't over. Nakamura wouldn't forgive this humiliation, wouldn't let it go. He'd come back, and next time people she loved would die, unless she found a way to end this permanently, which meant becoming something she swore she'd never be again. Dangerous. The helicopter touched down on the Orion Crown's rooftop at 11:47 p.m. Nia could barely walk. Junseo carried her through the access door and down the emergency stairs, refusing to wait for the elevator. His jaw was locked tight, movements controlled but radiating barely contained violence. Minji met them on the 9th floor, face pale. Medical team is waiting in the boss's suite. Good. Status report. Marcus is secure. Mrs. Choi and the others are in protective custody at a safe house. Nakamura's men attempted breaching the hotel perimeter twice. We repelled both attempts. Casualties? 3 injured, none fatal. Junseo's expression darkened. Double security. No one enters this building without facial recognition clearance. And get me everything we have on Nakamura's current location. Already working on it. They entered Junseo's suite. A medical team immediately surrounded Nia, checking vitals, cleaning wounds, asking questions she couldn't process. Everything felt distant, muffled, like she was underwater. Miss Bennett, can you tell me where it hurts? Everywhere. Nowhere. She didn't know anymore. Nia. Junseo's voice cut through the fog. They need you to answer. She focused on his face, the only solid thing in a world that wouldn't stop spinning. Ribs, she managed, left side, and my head. The medics worked efficiently. X-rays showed 3 cracked ribs but no internal bleeding. The head wound was superficial, mild concussion, extensive bruising. They wrapped her ribs, stitched her forehead, administered painkillers. Through it all, Junseo stood 3 feet away, watching. Silent. Deadly. Finally, the medical team left. Nia sat on the couch, wrapped in bandages and exhaustion, staring at nothing. Junseo poured himself whiskey with shaking hands, drank it in one swallow, poured another. You should have waited, he said quietly. We already had this conversation. Then we're having it again. You walked into a trap to save people. Who I could have saved without risking you. His voice cracked on the last word. Nia looked up. Junseo stood with his back to her, shoulders rigid, fighting for control. 4 hours, he continued, voice raw. 4 hours of flying back not knowing if you were alive. If Nakamura had already... He stopped. Do you have any idea what that felt like? Yes, because I felt the same thing when you flew to Tokyo. Junseo turned sharply. That's different. How? Because I'm trained for this. I've survived assassination attempts, gang wars, political coups. You're, what, too weak? Too civilian? Too important to lose. The words exploded between them like a grenade. Silence crashed down. Junseo closed his eyes, breathing hard. I can't do this, he said quietly. Fear spiked through Nia's chest. Do what? Watch you risk yourself. Not for me. Not for anyone. Then what are you suggesting? He opened his eyes. They were filled with something that looked like agony. I'm suggesting you leave Seoul. Tonight. I'll arrange transport to the airport, new identity, ticket to anywhere you want. Just go. Before Nakamura comes back with worse. Nia felt like she'd been punched. You're sending me away? I'm keeping you alive. By forcing me to run? By making the smart choice I should have made 4 weeks ago when you first walked into my suite. Nia stood despite the pain screaming through her ribs. You don't get to decide this for me. Someone has to, because you clearly won't protect yourself. I protected Marcus. I protected Mrs. Choi. I protected everyone except myself because that's what people do when they care. And look what it cost. Junseo gestured toward her bandaged body. You're hurt. You could have died. And for what? So I could trade my entire empire for your life? Would you have? In a heartbeat. The honesty in his voice stopped her cold. Then you understand, Nia said softly. Because I would have done the same for you. Junseo stared at her. When? He asked. When did this happen? When did you stop running and start caring about you? Nia finished. I don't know. Somewhere between the late nights and the fear and watching you destroy yourself trying to control everything. She stepped closer despite the pain. You asked me to wait for you, so I waited. And now you're trying to send me away? To keep you safe. I don't want safe. I want... What? A life where people try killing you because you matter to me? Where every day is a calculation of threats and violence? His voice turned desperate. That's not life, Nia. That's survival, and you deserve better. Maybe I get to decide what I deserve. Not when your decision gets you killed. They stood 3 feet apart, both breathing hard, locked in a battle neither knew how to win. Finally, Nia spoke quietly. What happened in Tokyo? Junseo's expression shuddered. That's not relevant. It is if you're making decisions based on it. What happened? He turned away, shoulders tight. I lost 3 men. Good men. Loyal. They died protecting a shipment Nakamura tried seizing. His voice went flat. I had to call their families. Tell them their husbands, fathers, sons were dead. Because of me. Because I refused compromising on territory. That's not your fault, isn't it? I'm their leader. Their safety is my responsibility. And mine isn't. Junseo looked at her sharply. Yes, it is. Why? Because I work for you? Because I love you. The words hung in the air like a confession and a curse. Nia felt her entire world tilt. What? Junseo closed his eyes like he was in pain. I love you. I've loved you since you walked out of my suite, refusing my job offer like I was nobody. I loved you when you scolded me for not eating. I loved you when you stayed up at 3 a.m., forcing me to sleep. I loved you when you stood on that tarmac begging me not to leave. He opened his eyes. And I love you enough to let you go before this world destroys you. Nia couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel the weight of his words pressing against her chest. You can't just say that and then ask me to leave. I can if it keeps you alive. I don't want to leave. Nia, I don't want to leave. The words tore out of her. Don't you understand? I came to Seoul to hide, to disappear, to never let anyone matter again. And then you happened, and now I can't imagine going back to that emptiness. Even if staying means dying? Even then, Junseo crossed the distance between them and cupped her face with both hands, gentle, despite the violence radiating from every line of his body. I can't watch you die, he whispered. Then don't let me. How? By letting me fight beside you instead of sending me away. You're not a fighter. Neither were you until your world forced you to be. Maybe it's my turn. Junseo searched her face, looking for something. Doubt, maybe. Fear. A reason to push her away. But Nia met his gaze steadily. I'm not running anymore, she said. From you. From this. From Nakamura. So either we face this together, or you physically throw me on a plane. Your choice. For a long moment, Junseo said nothing. Then he leaned forward and kissed her forehead, careful to avoid her stitches. You're impossibly stubborn. I learned from the best. He pulled back slightly, jaw tight. If you stay, it won't be safe. Nakamura won't stop until one of us is dead. Then we make sure it's him. That means becoming exactly what you ran from in Chicago. The words hit like ice water. How do you see? I told you. I investigated you. I know what happened. Nia's throat closed. Then you know why I can't go back to that person? I know. His expression softened. But maybe that person wasn't wrong. Maybe she was just protecting herself the only way she knew how. By hurting people? By surviving them. Nia felt tears burn her eyes. I swore I'd never be that ruthless again. And I swore I'd never care about anyone again. Look how that worked out. Despite everything, Nia almost laughed. We're a disaster. Completely. He kissed her then, soft, careful. Not claiming, but asking. And Nia kissed him back, tasting whiskey and desperation and something that felt terrifyingly like hope. When they pulled apart, Junseo rested his forehead against hers. If we do this, if you stay, there's no going back. You understand that? I understand. Nakamura will come for you again, harder, worse. Let him. You might have to do things that haunt you. I already do things that haunt me. At least this time I'll be doing them for someone who matters. Junseo's arms tightened around her. 7 days, he said quietly. You had 7 days left before leaving. Now you'll never leave. Good. They held each other while Seoul glittered outside the windows, beautiful and brutal and unforgiving. Finally, Minji knocked on the door. Boss, we found Nakamura. The war room on the 9th floor looked like something from a military operation. Screens displayed security feeds, maps, and intelligence reports. 20 of Junseo's most trusted people filled the space, all armed, all waiting. Minji pulled up surveillance footage. Nakamura's holed up in a shipping warehouse in Busan. Heavy security. At least 30 men. He's preparing to move his base of operations entirely out of Korea. Good, someone said. Let him leave. He won't leave, Junseo said flatly. Not after tonight. He'll regroup, come back with more men, and finish what he started. So what do we do? Junseo studied the screens, jaw tight. We end it, tonight. Murmurs rippled through the room. That's suicide, one of the senior members said. 30 men in a fortified position, we'd lose half our people. Not if we're smart. Junseo zoomed in on the warehouse layout. He'll expect a frontal assault, so we don't give him one. Then what? We give him a target he can't resist. Junseo's eyes flicked to Nia. Me. Ice flooded Nia's chest. No. If I walk in alone, he'll want the confrontation. Personal, final. While he's focused on me, our team breaches from 3 secondary points. He traced lines on the map. East loading dock, west ventilation shaft, rooftop access, coordinated strike. Nakamura's trapped in the center. That only works if he doesn't kill you immediately, Minji pointed out. He won't. Not right away. He'll want to make a point. That's when you move. This is insane, Nia said. You're using yourself as bait. It's the only way. It's not the only way. There's always another way. Not this time. Junseo's voice was final. We move in 2 hours. Prep teams for insertion. The room emptied quickly, people scattering to prepare. Nia grabbed Junseo's arm. You can't do this. I can and I will. He'll kill you. Maybe. But at least you'll be safe. Safe? You think I'll be safe if you die? You think I'll just move on like you didn't matter? Junseo cupped her face. If I die, Minji will get you out of Korea. New identity, clean escape. You'll survive this. I don't want to survive without you. Then you should have left when I asked you to. He kissed her hard, desperately, like it was goodbye, then walked away before she could respond. Nia stood alone in the war room, shaking with fury and terror. Minji appeared beside her. He's right, you know. This is the only way to end it. There has to be another option. There isn't. Nakamura won't stop until one of them is dead. Better we control when and where that happens. Better he dies, you mean? Minji's expression was grim. If that's what it takes. Nia looked at the screens showing the Busan warehouse. 30 men, heavy weapons, a fortress. And Junseo was walking in alone. I can't let him do this, she said quietly. You don't have a choice. Everyone keeps saying that like I'm helpless, but I'm not. Nia turned to face Minji directly. You said earlier that emotion makes men vulnerable, that caring gets people killed. Yes. Then we use that. Not against Junseo, against Nakamura. Minji frowned. What are you suggesting? Nakamura wants leverage against Junseo, wants him broken, desperate. That's why he took me. Nia's mind raced. So we give him what he wants. We give him me. Absolutely not. Not actually, just the appearance. I go in first. Nakamura thinks he has his leverage, gets confident, drops his guard. That's when Junseo strikes. That's even more insane than the boss's plan. Maybe, but at least this way he doesn't walk in alone. Minji stared at her for a long moment. You're serious? Completely. The boss will never agree to this. Then we don't tell him until we're already moving. He'll kill me. He'll forgive you, eventually. Minji closed her eyes, clearly weighing options. If we do this, and I'm not saying we are, you need training, fast, basic self-defense, weapons handling, extraction protocols. How long do we have? 90 minutes. Then let's get started. The next hour and a half blurred together. Minji drilled Nia relentlessly, how to fall without breaking ribs further, how to create openings for extraction, how to shoot if absolutely necessary. The pain was excruciating, but Nia pushed through it, fueled by desperation and stubbornness. Remember, Minji said, checking Nia's concealed earpiece. Your job isn't to fight. It's to survive long enough for us to get you out. Don't be a hero. Says the woman helping me become bait. I'm helping you not die as bait. There's a difference. They moved to the armory. Minji handed Nia a small pistol. Last resort only. You probably won't even need it. Probably? Honestly, the boss is going to murder both of us before Nakamura gets the chance. Nia checked the gun's weight, safety, magazine. Muscle memory from Chicago kicked in, training she'd tried forgetting for 3 years. Minji noticed. You've done this before. Long time ago. How long? Long enough that I swore I'd never touch a gun again. What changed? Nia met her eyes. I fell in love with someone worth protecting. Minji's expression softened slightly. The boss is lucky. He doesn't deserve you. Nobody deserves anyone. We just find people worth the risk. They geared up, bulletproof vest concealed under civilian clothes, tracker embedded in Nia's watch, panic button disguised as a bracelet. Professional. Thorough. Terrifying. At 2:15 a.m., Minji received confirmation that Junseo had already left for Busan with the assault team. He's 40 minutes ahead of us, Minji said. We need to move now if we're beating him there. They took a separate vehicle, fast, unmarked, driven by one of Minji's most trusted operatives. The drive to Busan took 2 hours at illegal speeds. Nia spent the entire time trying not to think about what she was about to do. Trying not to think about Junseo's reaction when he discovered her plan. Trying not to think about dying before she could tell him she loved him too. They arrived at the warehouse district at 4:33 a.m. Dawn was still an hour away. The industrial area was dark, silent, hostile. Minji handed Nia a phone. Call this number. Tell them you're surrendering yourself in exchange for safe passage out of Korea for everyone under Kang Junseo's protection. They'll take you to Nakamura. And then? Then you stall. Talk. Bargain. Whatever keeps you alive until the boss's team is in position. How long? 20 minutes. Maybe less if he drives like he usually does when he's furious. So you're saying I'm definitely going to die? I'm saying don't make it easy for them. Nia dialed the number. It rang twice. Yes? Japanese accent, one of Nakamura's men. My name is Nia Bennett. I'm calling to negotiate my surrender. Pause. Then, wait. Shuffling sounds. Another voice. Nakamura himself. Miss Bennett, this is unexpected. You wanted leverage against Kang Junseo. I'm offering myself voluntarily in exchange for everyone else's safety. Very noble, also very stupid. What makes you think I'll honor such an agreement? Because you're a businessman, and dead leverage is worthless. Nakamura laughed. You're either very brave or very foolish. Where are you? Outside your warehouse, alone, unarmed. I walk in, you let everyone else go. And Kang Junseo? Doesn't know I'm here. More laughter. Oh, this is delicious. Yes, Miss Bennett, come in. Let's talk. The line went dead. Nia looked at Minji. I guess I'm going in. The tracker is active. We'll know your location every second. The boss will be here soon. Just don't die before then. I'll try. Nia stepped out of the vehicle and walked toward the warehouse alone. Every instinct screamed to run, but she forced herself forward one step at a time. The warehouse door opened. 2 guards appeared, patting her down thoroughly. They found nothing. Minji had made sure of that. The gun was in the vehicle. The tracker undetectable. They let her inside. The warehouse was massive. Shipping containers stacked high. Industrial lighting casting harsh shadows. The smell of oil and metal thick in the air. At the center, Nakamura waited. He smiled when he saw her. Miss Bennett, welcome. Nia stopped 3 meters away. Let everyone go. I'm here. You have your leverage. Not quite. Leverage requires the other party to care, and I'm not convinced Kang Junseo cares enough yet. He does. Then where is he? Coming. Is he? Nakamura checked his watch. We'll see. In the meantime, you'll wait here. Comfortably, of course. I'm not a barbarian. He gestured to a chair. Metal. Bolted to the floor. Nia's heart sank. That's not necessary. Sit. The guards forced her down. Zip ties secured her wrists to the armrests. Nakamura crouched in front of her. You came here thinking you'd be a hero, save everyone, sacrifice yourself nobly. He smiled coldly. But heroes die just as painfully as cowards. The only difference is the story people tell afterward. Then I guess we'll find out what story this becomes. Nakamura stood. We will indeed. He walked away, leaving Nia alone with 2 guards. She tested the zip ties. Tight. No give. Her watch read 4:47 a.m. Junseo's team was supposed to be in position by 5 a.m. 13 minutes. She just needed to survive 13 minutes. Then everything exploded. Not literally. But the warehouse doors burst open and Kang Junseo walked in alone, no weapons visible, radiating absolute lethal fury. His eyes found Nia immediately, and the expression on his face made her blood run cold. Not fear for her safety, pure, incandescent rage. Nia, he said quietly, voice carrying across the warehouse. What the hell are you doing here? Before she could answer, Nakamura appeared from the shadows, smiling. Kang-san, how nice of you to join us. Though you're earlier than expected, my intelligence suggested you were still 40 minutes out. Junseo didn't look at him, just kept his eyes locked on Nia. Let her go. No, but I will make you an offer. The southern routes in exchange for her life. Right now, final chance. Done. The word dropped like a bomb. Junseo, no, Nia started. Shut up, he said, still not looking away from her. The routes are yours, Nakamura. Transfer documents will be delivered within 24 hours. Let her go. Nakamura studied him suspiciously. Just like that? No negotiation? You wanted me to care. Congratulations. I care. Junseo finally turned to face Nakamura. Now let her go before I kill every single person in this building. You're outnumbered 30-1. I've survived worse odds. Perhaps. But can she? Nakamura pulled a gun and pressed it against Nia's temple. Junseo went perfectly still. Don't. Why not? You've agreed to my terms. She's served her purpose. You kill her, our deal is void, and I will hunt you to the ends of the earth. Empty threats from a man with no leverage. Try me. They stared at each other, predators calculating odds. Then Nia spoke. He's bluffing. Both men looked at her. What? Nakamura said. Junseo. He's bluffing about the roots. He'll never give them to you. He'd rather die first. Nia, shut up, Junseo started. No, I'm done shutting up. She met Nakamura's eyes. You want him broken, desperate. You won't get that by killing me. You'll just make him angry. And angry men like Kang Junseo don't negotiate. They annihilate. Nakamura's expression shifted. You're trying to protect him. I'm trying to keep us both alive. By telling me he's lying? By telling you the truth. He won't give you the routes. Not for me. Not for anyone. Because the second he does, you'll kill us both anyway. So our only chance is calling your bluff first. Nakamura lowered the gun slightly, studying her face. You're either brilliant or suicidal. Both, definitely both. Then everything happened at once. Explosions rocked the warehouse's east and west sides, Junseo's team breaching simultaneously. Gunfire erupted. Nakamura's men scattered, returning fire. Chaos consumed the space. Junseo moved instantly, closing the distance to Nia in 3 strides, cutting her zip ties with a knife that appeared from nowhere. Can you run? Yes. Then run. They sprinted toward the nearest exit, bullets tearing through the air around them. Nia's ribs screamed with every step, but she pushed through it, Junseo half dragging her forward. They made it outside into the pre-dawn darkness. A vehicle screeched to a stop beside them. Minji at the wheel. Get in! They dove into the back seat as Minji floored the accelerator. Behind them, the warehouse continued exploding. Tactical breaches, firefights. The sound of a war condensed into a single building. Nia collapsed against the seat, breathing hard, ears ringing. Junseo grabbed her face, forcing her to look at him. Are you hurt? No, maybe, I don't know. What the hell were you thinking? I was thinking I wasn't letting you die. So you decided to die instead. I decided we survived together or not at all. They glared at each other, both furious, both terrified, both alive. Then Junseo pulled her against him and held on like she might disappear. Don't ever do that again, he said into her hair. You first. I'm serious, Nia. So am I. We're in this together now. No more solo suicide missions. You don't get to decide that. Neither do you, Minji interrupted from the front seat. Hate to break up the lovers' quarrel, but we have a problem. What kind of problem? Junseo asked. 3 vehicles following us. Nakamura's men. They got out before the breach. Junseo looked through the back window. Headlights gaining fast. How far to the safe house? 20 minutes at this speed. We won't make it. They'll overtake us in 5. Then what do we do? Junseo's jaw tightened. We stop running. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Bring everyone, yes, everyone. Coordinates incoming. And bring heavy artillery. This ends today. He hung up and looked at Nia. Last chance to back out. Never. This is going to get worse before it gets better. I know. People will die. I know that too. Junseo studied her face, seeing something that made his expression shift. You're not the same person who walked into my suite 4 weeks ago. No, I'm not. Do you regret it? Nia thought about Chicago, about 3 years of hiding, about the person she'd been before Seoul reshaped her. No, she said finally. I don't. Junseo leaned forward and kissed her, hard, desperate, like they were running out of time. Maybe they were. Minji took a sharp turn, heading toward an abandoned industrial park on the outskirts of Busan. Empty buildings, no witnesses, perfect for a final confrontation. Everyone's converging here, Junseo said. Nakamura's forces. Mine. We end this in one battle. No retreats, no second chances. How many people are you bringing? Nia asked. 50. Maybe more. And Nakamura? Whatever he has left. Could be 20. Could be 50. Those aren't great odds. No, but they're the only ones we have. The vehicle stopped in the center of the industrial park. They got out. Dawn was breaking finally, painting the sky gray and gold. Behind them, Nakamura's three vehicles appeared. Ahead, a convoy of black SUVs, Junseo's reinforcements, roared into position. Within minutes, two armies faced each other across 100 meters of empty asphalt. Junseo stood at the center of his forces, perfectly calm. Nakamura emerged from his vehicle, flanked by guards. They walked toward each other slowly, stopping 10 meters apart. "This is your last chance," Nakamura said. "Surrender the roots. Walk away." "No." "Then a lot of people die today." "Yes, starting with you." Nakamura smiled coldly. "You're not afraid of death." "I'm terrified of it, but I'm more terrified of living without her." Junseo glanced back at Nia, standing beside Minji, wrapped in a bulletproof vest that wouldn't stop a direct hit. "So if it's a choice between losing territory or losing her, there's no choice at all." Nakamura's smile faded. "Then you've already lost." He raised his hand. Junseo raised his. For one frozen moment, the world held its breath. Then both men dropped their hands, and hell erupted. Gunfire exploded from both sides. People scattered for cover. Bullets tore through metal and glass. Someone screamed. Someone fell. The industrial park transformed into a war zone. Junseo grabbed Nia, pulling her behind an overturned vehicle. "Stay down!" "What are you staying down," he finished. "For once in your life, just stay down." He moved back into the fight, coordinating his people, returning fire with lethal precision. Nia crouched behind cover, watching the man she loved wage war for the right to keep loving her, and realized something terrifying. This wouldn't end today, even if they survived, even if Nakamura died. Someone else would come. Another threat, another enemy, another war, because that's what Junseo's world was. Endless violence barely contained by fragile truces. And she'd chosen it anyway, chosen him anyway. A bullet hit the vehicle inches from her head. Nia ducked lower, heart hammering. Across the battlefield, she saw Nakamura moving toward Junseo with a rifle raised. Saw Junseo too focused on coordinating his people to notice. Saw the moment Nakamura took aim. And Nia made a choice. She broke from cover, sprinted across open ground, screamed Junseo's name. He turned. Saw Nakamura. Saw Nia running toward him. Time slowed. Nakamura fired. And Nia realized, too late, that heroes really do die just as painfully as cowards. The only difference is the story people tell afterward. The bullet was meant for Junseo's chest. Instead, it tore through Nia's shoulder as she collided with him, knocking them both sideways. They hit the ground hard, asphalt shredding skin, the impact forcing air from her lungs in a single violent gasp. Pain exploded white-hot across her vision. But she was alive. They were both alive. Junseo rolled instantly, covering her body with his, scanning for the next threat. His hands moved over her frantically, finding the wound, pressing down hard to stop the bleeding. "Nia, look at me." She tried. Everything was spinning. "I'm okay," she managed. "You're shot." "Better me than you." "That's not better. That's insane." More gunfire erupted around them. Minji appeared, returning fire to give them cover. Two of Junseo's men dragged them behind a concrete barrier. Junseo ripped off his jacket, wadding it against Nia's shoulder. The pressure made her scream. I know it hurts, but I need to stop the bleeding." "Where's Nakamura?" "Forget Nakamura, see, where is he?" Junseo's jaw tightened. He glanced over the barrier. When he looked back, his expression was murderous. "Retreating, heading for the east exit." "Then go." "I'm not leaving you." "Junseo." Nia grabbed his shirt with her good hand, forcing him to meet her eyes. "If he escapes, this never ends. You know that. So go, finish this." "You're bleeding. Minji will get me to a hospital, but you have to end this now." He stared at her, torn between staying and pursuing. Nia made the decision for him. "Go!" Minji appeared beside them, taking over pressure on the wound. "I've got her. Go kill that bastard." Junseo looked at Nia one more time, something desperate crossing his face. Then he kissed her hard, tasting like smoke and blood and fear. "Don't die," he whispered against her lips. "You either." He stood and ran toward the east exit, 4 of his best men following. The The sound of their footsteps faded into the chaos of gunfire still echoing across the industrial park. Minji worked quickly, tearing fabric to make a better bandage. "You're an idiot," she said conversationally. "I know." Taking a bullet for him? Completely reckless? Seemed like a good idea at the time. You're lucky it hit shoulder instead of chest. Doesn't feel lucky. Trust me, you're lucky. Around them, the firefight was dying down. Junseo's forces had overwhelmed Nakamura's remaining men. Bodies littered the ground. Both sides had paid brutally for this confrontation. The dawn light made everything look surreal, painted in shades of gray and red. Nia heard shouting in the distance, then a single gunshot, then silence. Minji's radio crackled. "Target neutralized. Boss is secure. We're coming back." Relief crashed through Nia so powerfully she nearly passed out. "He's alive?" "He's alive." "Nakamura?" Minji didn't answer. She didn't need to. 5 minutes later, Junseo appeared, walking slowly across the battlefield. Blood on his suit. Exhaustion carved into every line of his body. But alive. Whole. Victorious. He dropped to his knees beside Naya, hands shaking as they touched her face. "You're okay." "I'm okay." "You took a bullet. Flesh wound. I've had worse." "When?" "Chicago." "Long story." Junseo's expression cracked. He pulled her carefully against his chest, holding her like she was the only real thing in the world. "Don't ever do that again. We already had this conversation. Then we're having it again. And again. Until you stop running into bullets meant for me." "That's fair?" They sat there in the wreckage of a war neither wanted but both survived, breathing each other in while emergency vehicles wailed in the distance. "Is it over?" Nia asked quietly. Junseo pulled back to look at her. "Yes, it's over." "What happens now?" "Now we go home." Set. The hospital was private, exclusive, and asked no questions when Junseo arrived with a gunshot victim at 7 a.m. The bullet had passed clean through. No bone damage, no arterial bleeding, just torn muscle that would heal with time and physical therapy. They kept Nia overnight for observation. Junseo never left her room. He sat in the chair beside her bed, holding her hand, occasionally dozing but mostly just watching her breathe, like he needed proof she was still alive. Marcus showed up around noon, panicked and furious. "I heard you got shot. What the hell happened?" "Long story," Naya said. "Then give me the short version." Nia glanced at Junseo, who raised an eyebrow but said nothing. "I got involved with someone dangerous. Things escalated, but it's over now." Marcus looked between them, clearly putting pieces together. "You got shot because of him?" "I got shot protecting him." "That's the same thing." "No, it's not." Nia's voice was firm. "I made my choice. Nobody forced me." Marcus stared at her like she'd lost her mind. 3 weeks ago, you couldn't wait to leave Seoul. Now you're taking bullets for a mafia boss? A lot changed in 3 weeks. Clearly, he looked at Junseo with something between anger and resignation. "If she dies because of you, then I'll already be dead," Junseo said quietly, "because I won't survive losing her." The honesty in his voice stopped Marcus cold. He turned back to Nia. "You're really doing this? Staying with him?" "Yes." "Even knowing what his world is like?" "Especially knowing." Marcus sighed heavily. "You're the most stubborn person I've ever met." "I learned from the best," Nia said, squeezing Junseo's hand. Marcus stayed for 20 minutes, extracting promises that she'd actually call him this time instead of disappearing into mafia drama. Then he left, shaking his head but smiling slightly. After he was gone, Nia turned to Junseo. "Tell me about Chicago." His expression went carefully neutral. "What do you want to know?" "Everything you found when you investigated me. I want to hear it from you." Junseo was quiet for a long moment. "You worked for a consulting firm. Big accounts, political connections, high-stakes negotiations. You were good at it, ruthless even. Then you started seeing one of the partners, Robert Chen, older, powerful, controlling." Nia's chest tightened, but she nodded for him to continue. "He didn't like you having autonomy. Started isolating you from friends, monitoring your schedule, controlling your finances. Classic patterns." Junseo's jaw tightened. When you finally tried leaving, he threatened to destroy your career, said he'd blacklist you from every firm in Chicago, so you fought back. I recorded him, Nia said quietly. Months of abuse, threats, manipulation. Then I sent it to HR, the board, his wife, and 3 major clients. You destroyed him. I survived him. There's a difference. He filed charges, harassment, defamation, tried burying you legally. And he almost succeeded, except I had a better lawyer and documentation he couldn't dispute. The case was dismissed, but the damage was done. Every firm knew my name, knew I'd gone to war with a partner. Nobody would touch me. Junseo's thumb stroked across her knuckles. So you left the country. I ran, like a coward. Came to Seoul where nobody knew my name or my past. Took a job cleaning hotel rooms because it was the only thing that didn't require references. Nia met his eyes, and I told myself I'd never let a powerful man control me again. Never care about someone who could hurt me. Never trust anyone enough to give them that kind of power. And then you met me. And then I met you. I'm not him, Junseo said fiercely. I know. I would never, I know. But you were still scared. Nia nodded, terrified. You're everything I swore I'd avoid. Powerful, dangerous, used to controlling everything around you. What changed? You did. Every time you could have forced me, you didn't. Every time you could have used your power against me, you chose not to. Nia's eyes burned with unshed tears. You let me say no. You let me leave. You gave me power instead of taking it. That's just basic decency. No, it's not. Most men like you don't understand the word no. But you did, and that made all the difference. Junseo leaned forward, carefully avoiding her injured shoulder, and pressed his forehead against hers. I love you, he said quietly. And I need you to understand something. I will never control you, never cage you, never make you feel like you did in Chicago. You're free to leave whenever you want. No consequences, no retaliation, just freedom. I don't want freedom from you. I want freedom with you. Then you have it, always. They stayed like that, breathing together, until a nurse knocked to check Nia's vitals. The next 3 days passed in a blur of recovery. Nia was released from the hospital with strict orders to rest, physical therapy appointments scheduled for the next 6 weeks, and enough painkillers to knock out a horse. Junseo moved her into his suite at the Orion Crown, ignoring her protests that she had her own apartment. Your apartment has one lock and no security system, he said flatly. You're staying here until I'm convinced nobody's coming after you. Nakamura's dead. Who would come after me? His associates, his family, people who blame us for disrupting their operations. Junseo's expression was grim. The war is over, but the consequences aren't. Not yet. So Nia stayed. The suite was massive compared to her studio, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul, a kitchen she'd actually use, a bedroom that didn't double as a living room. It felt surreal, like playing house in someone else's life. But slowly, it started feeling like hers, too. Junseo worked from the suite most days, handling business from his home office while checking on her obsessively. Every hour he'd appear in the doorway, just making sure she was still there, still breathing, still alive. I'm fine, she'd say every time. I know. Then stop looking at me like I'm going to disappear. Can't help it. You almost died, twice. My brain needs time to accept that you're actually okay. How much time? Probably forever. On the 4th day, Min-ji arrived with news. The Nakamura syndicate has officially withdrawn from Korea. His second-in-command reached out with terms. They leave our territory alone. We don't pursue retaliation for the attacks. And you believe them? Nia asked. I believe they're smart enough to know continuing this war would destroy them completely. Min-ji looked at Junseo. You broke their leadership, killed their boss. They're in chaos. This is the best deal we're getting. Junseo was quiet for a long moment. Accept their terms, but maintain border security for 6 months. If they violate the agreement even once, we respond with overwhelming force. Understood. After Min-ji left, Nia turned to Junseo. Is it really over? For now. There will always be another threat, another competitor, another war. He took her hand carefully. That's the world I live in, The world you've chosen. I know. You can still change your mind. I won't. Even knowing it means a life of looking over your shoulder, of security and protocols and danger. Nia thought about it honestly. I spent 3 years hiding, playing it safe, never letting anyone matter, and I was miserable. She met his eyes. I'd rather have a dangerous life with you than a safe life without you. Something shifted in Junseo's expression. Relief, gratitude, love. Then we figure out how to make it work. How? Carefully. You're not going back to housekeeping. I wasn't planning to. And you're not going back to being my attendant. That was always temporary. Then what am I? Junseo pulled her carefully onto his lap, mindful of her shoulder. Whatever you want to be. My partner. My equal. The person I trust most in the world. That's a lot of responsibility. You've already proven you can handle it. You survived Nakamura, survived getting shot, survived me. He smiled slightly. I think you can handle whatever comes next. Nia rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, steady, strong, alive. What about your mother? Junseo tensed. What about her? She wanted you to marry the Park family daughter, to produce an heir, to follow tradition. I don't care what she wants. She's your mother? She stopped being my mother when she chose power over family, when she tried controlling my life the way she controlled my father's, when she stood by while my brother tried killing me. His voice was cold. I'll handle my mother. You don't need to worry about her. But Nia did worry, because families like Junseo's didn't just accept defeat. They regrouped, waited, found new angles of attack. Still, that was a problem for another day. Right now, she was alive. He was alive. They'd survived impossible odds and come out the other side intact. That had to count for something. 2 weeks later, Nia's physical therapy was progressing well. The shoulder still hurt, but functionality was returning. She could dress herself, shower without help, even type on a keyboard for short periods. Marcus visited regularly, still skeptical, but slowly accepting that Nia had actually chosen this life. They had coffee at the hotel cafe, talking about books and movies and everything except mafia violence. Mrs. Choi returned to work, giving Nia knowing looks but asking no questions. The security guard who'd been killed during the rescue operation received a funeral with full honors. Junseo attended personally, paying his respects to the family and setting up a trust fund for their children. Slowly, life found a new rhythm. One morning, Junseo came into the bedroom carrying coffee and a serious expression. We need to talk. Nia's stomach dropped. That's never a good way to start a conversation. It's not bad, just important. He sat on the edge of the bed. You can't stay in Korea on a work visa forever, and I can't sponsor you through the hotel anymore since you're not actually working there. So what are you suggesting? Marry me. Nia choked on her coffee. What? Marry me. It solves the visa issue, protects you legally, and makes it significantly harder for my enemies to target you. That's possibly the least romantic proposal in history. Junseo's expression softened. You're right. Let me try again. He took her hand. Nia Bennett, I love you. You're the bravest, most stubborn, most infuriating person I've ever met. You make me laugh. You make me furious. You make me want to be better than the monster everyone thinks I am. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I want you in it. Every day, every moment, for however long we both survive this life. He paused. So marry me. Not because of visas or legality or protection, but because I can't imagine existing in a world where you're not mine. Nia felt tears streaming down her face. That's better. Is that a yes? It's a maybe. Junseo raised an eyebrow. Maybe? I need to know something first. When you say marry you, do you mean in name only, for convenience, or do you mean actually build a life together? Build a life. Kids? If you want them. A house? Wherever you want. Normalcy? As much as we can manage? I'll try. I can't promise it'll work, but I'll try. Nia searched his face, looking for doubt, finding none. Then yes, I'll marry you. Junseo pulled her into a careful kiss, mindful of her healing shoulder. When they broke apart, He was smiling, actually smiling, not the cold half expression he usually wore in public. We should tell Minji. She'll want to arrange security for the wedding. I don't want a big wedding. Neither do I. Small, private, just people who matter. Marcus will be relieved. Your friend hates me. He doesn't hate you. He's just protective. Smart man. They spent the rest of the morning planning, not the wedding, but the life that came after. Where they'd live. A house outside Seoul, private but accessible. What Nia would do. Becky, she wanted to go back to consulting, maybe start her own firm. How they'd navigate Junseo's world while building something resembling normalcy. It felt impossible. It felt necessary. It felt right. The wedding happened 3 weeks later in a private garden outside Seoul. 15 people attended. Marcus, Minji, a few of Junseo's most trusted associates, and Mrs. Choi, who cried through the entire ceremony. Nia wore a simple white dress. Junseo wore a suit. No extravagance. No performance. Just two people making promises they intended to keep. I promise to love you even when you're being impossible, Nia said. I promise to let you win arguments at least 30% of the time, Junseo replied. That's not enough. 40% final offer. 50. You're negotiating during our wedding vows. I learned from the best. Everyone laughed. It was perfect, imperfect, human, exactly what they needed. Afterward, they had dinner at a small restaurant Marcus recommended. Nothing fancy, just good food and better company. Nia sat beside her husband, the word still felt surreal, and watched him interact with people who weren't subordinates or enemies. He was different here, relaxed, almost normal. This was the man she'd fallen for, not the mafia boss, just Junseo, complicated and damaged and trying his best to be better. Later, back at the hotel, they stood on the balcony watching Seoul glitter below. Do you regret it? Junseo asked quietly. What? Staying. Choosing this. Me. Nia thought about the question seriously. She thought about Chicago and the fear that drove her to Seoul, about 3 years of hiding and telling herself safety meant loneliness, about the moment she opened his sweet door and her entire life tilted sideways. She thought about bullets and blood and standing in a warehouse knowing she might die, about the choice to run toward danger instead of away from it, about learning that love wasn't weakness, it was the thing that made her strong enough to survive. No, she said finally. I don't regret it. Not even for a second. Junseo pulled her against him, careful of her shoulder. Good, because I'm not letting you go. Never? Never. They stood there wrapped around each other while the city breathed below, violent and beautiful and unforgiving. This was their life now, dangerous, complicated, real, and Nia wouldn't change a single thing. 6 months later, they moved into a house in the countryside outside Seoul. Modern architecture, high security, but surrounded by trees and quiet. A place where they could breathe without constantly looking over their shoulders. Nia started her consulting firm, specializing in international negotiations. Her first client was a Korean tech company expanding into American markets. The work was challenging, fulfilling, everything she'd missed from her old career. Except this time, nobody controlled her. Nobody threatened her. She built it herself, on her own terms. Junseo gradually stepped back from day-to-day operations, delegating more to Minji and other trusted lieutenants. He still maintained control, still made final decisions, but he stopped working 18-hour days, stopped destroying himself trying to control everything. He learned to sleep properly, to eat regular meals, to exist as something more than just a weapon pointed at his enemies. They weren't perfect. They fought, loud, messy arguments about everything from security protocols to where to eat dinner. But they also laughed, made love, built something that felt remarkably like happiness, despite the violence that still touched the edges of their world. Marcus visited monthly, gradually accepting that Nia had actually found something worth keeping. He and Junseo developed a cautious friendship built mostly on teasing Nia and discussing books neither thought the other would read. Mrs. Choi retired but stayed in touch, sending care packages and scolding Nia for not visiting enough. Minji became Nia's closest friend. They had coffee every week, talking about everything except business. It turned out Min-ji had a wicked sense of humor and opinions about everything from politics to Korean dramas. Life settled into something sustainable. One morning, almost a year after the wedding, Nia woke to find Junseo already awake, watching her with an unreadable expression. "What?" she mumbled, still half asleep. "I was just thinking." "About?" "About the night you walked into my suite. How close I came to letting you leave. How different my life would be if I had." Nia rolled over to face him properly. "Regrets?" "None. Just gratitude." "For what?" "For you. For stubbornness. For refusing to let me send you away even when it was the smart choice." "Smart is overrated." "Clearly." He kissed her forehead, gentle and reverent. "I love you." "I love you too, even when you're being impossible." "Especially then." "Especially then," Nia agreed. They lay there as morning light filtered through the windows, wrapped around each other, alive and whole, and together. Outside, the world continued turning. Deals were made. Territory was negotiated. Violence simmered beneath Seoul's polished surface, waiting for the next opportunity to erupt. But inside their home, they'd built something the world couldn't touch. Not safety. That was an illusion people told themselves. But something better. Partnership. Trust. Love that survived bullets and blood and impossible odds. Nia thought about the woman she'd been 3 years ago, terrified, alone, convinced that caring about anyone was a weakness she couldn't afford. And she thought about the woman she was now, scarred, dangerous in her own right, but no longer afraid. Because she'd learned something important. Love wasn't the thing that made you weak. Love was the thing that made you strong enough to survive everything trying to destroy you. And sometimes the safest place a broken heart could land was in the arms of a man just as broken, who loved you enough to let you stay broken while you both figured out how to heal. Nia Bennett never boarded her flight back to America. Instead, she chose Seoul. She chose chaos. She chose danger. She chose him. And discovered that sometimes the most terrifying decision becomes the one that saves you. Not because it was safe, but because it was real. Basun. 2 years after the wedding, Nia stood in the same garden where they'd exchanged vows, watching Junseo teach their 6-month-old daughter how to grab his finger. The baby, Mina, named after Min-ji, who'd cried when they told her, was small, fierce, and already had her father's intensity. "She's going to be trouble," Marcus said beside Nia. "Definitely. Takes after her mother. And her father. You two are going to have your hands full." Nia smiled. "Probably, but we're good at handling impossible things." Marcus laughed. "That you are." They watched Junseo gently lift Mina into the air, making her laugh, a sound that transformed his entire face into something soft and human and impossibly gentle. This was the man Seoul feared, the Mafia Boss whose name made enemies flinch, completely undone by a 6-month-old baby who'd inherited his stubbornness and her mother's refusal to accept limitations. Nia walked over and wrapped her arms around both of them. "She's going to rule the world someday," Junseo said quietly. Terrifying thought. Isn't it? But he was smiling, actually smiling, the kind of smile that said he'd burn the world down to protect this moment. And Nia knew, without doubt, without hesitation, that this was exactly where she belonged. Not in the life she'd planned, not in the safety she'd craved, but in the messy, dangerous, beautiful chaos of loving someone impossible and building something real from the wreckage. Seoul still never slept. Neon lights still bled across rain-soaked streets, while black luxury cars glided silently through the city like predators hunting in the dark. But inside their home, away from the violence and the empire and the constant calculations, they'd found something rare. Peace. Not perfect, never perfect, but theirs. And that was enough. The end. Years later, when people asked how Nia Bennett, the American consultant who became a mafia boss's wife, survived Seoul's underworld, she'd smile and say it simply. "I stopped running, started fighting, and fell in love with someone who taught me that strength isn't about never being afraid. It's about being terrified and choosing to stay anyway." And when they asked if she regretted any of it, the danger, the violence, the scars both visible and hidden, her answer never changed. Not for a single second, because the best things in life are never safe. They're just worth the risk. Kang Jun-seo, the feared mafia boss who'd spent 3 years feeling nothing, learned something too. That love wasn't control. It was surrender. Choosing someone else's survival over your own, building something fragile in a world designed to destroy anything soft. And discovering that sometimes the most dangerous thing you could do was let yourself be vulnerable enough to care. They'd both been broken when they met, both hiding, both surviving instead of living, but together they became something neither could have been alone. Whole. Not because they fixed each other, broken things don't work that way, but because they chose each other anyway, cracks and scars and all, and built a life where being broken was just part of being human, where love wasn't weakness. It was the strongest thing either of them ever did.